All right, good morning. Thank you all for joining us today at the Finance and Physical Resources meeting. Sorry about the delay. We have a couple updates here. So, looks like our first item on the agenda is public comment. And if you wish to speak, we had note cards at the entrance. And everyone, I believe there's about 35 note cards. So we have a large number who would like to speak today. So each guest that has something to say, you're welcome to come up to the podium when Regina calls your name. And at that time, you'll come up, state your name, and you have 3 minutes to talk. And there is an option if you have a similar thing to say, you're welcome to select 2 people from your group to speak for 10 minutes, if you would prefer to do that. Or would you prefer to speak individually? Individually? Okay, we can do that. So, but in the best interest of time, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. You'll see a timer up here and a noise will go off when your time is up. So, Regina, would you like to call our first guest?
Absolutely, thank you, Chair. Carol Hennessy is speaker number 1.
Welcome, Commissioner Hennessy.
Good morning, commissioners, colleagues. First up on your agenda is the decision on paving John Ball Park, providing permanent paved parking, and amendment of the 2015 master plan. The conflict between the promoters of economic activity for the zoo and the preservationists of the park is at the heart of this controversy. Commissioners will be making the choice: paving over Paradise and putting in a parking lot via version 2015 or 2023, unless you change the resolution before you. The Commission will lead the way. The Commission leads the way because this is part of a bigger conversation as we move forward on an amphitheater, soccer stadium, GVSU expansion, zoo expansion. How do we move traffic? How do we handle parking? More time is needed for this discussion. Be open to considering the options. The neighbors and friends of the Save John Ball Park movement ask this of you. This group is citizen-led. It is the friends who live near the park and the friends who are further away, but all of whom are trying to keep Kent County open to the possibilities. From a letter I received, we believe a solution exists to meet both the needs of the zoo and our community, and to honor our shared values of conservation and preservation of green space. This is the spirit that Save John Ball Park brings to the table. Another letter writer, seeking a long-term solution, talks of wild spaces, however small, as being precious and worth preserving. The freedom of play as children on the open land in the middle of the bustling city life was noted by a number of folks, and I think at least one commissioner. How do you as commissioners, the ultimate decider on green space or paved parking, do this? Because we're making value judgments in this decision. We're making decisions on neighborhoods, and we're deciding whether entertainment for a day is more important than the people who live in our neighborhoods, the people who sit, walk, picnic, play in our open green spaces. There needs to be another way forward. And it's us, the Board of Commissioners, who are ultimately responsible for this park or its demise. You vote with today's resolution, and we vote as a totality, as a total board, on November 30th. Permanent construction means permanent change. Once the trees are gone, the grass is paved, it's gone forever. Pave over Paradise and put in a parking lot. Let's not make a losing bargain. There may be no winners in today's resolution as it's presented. The park and the zoo are the people's asset. Park or parking lot. Change this resolution, delay this resolution, but don't pass this resolution. Let's find another way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly Heathfield?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Holly Heathfield, and I live on Richards Ave, and I stand before you not just a resident of the West Side, but as a concerned member of a community deeply invested in the preservation of John Ball Park. As we gather here to discuss the potential of removal of green space in this park, I urge you to consider the multifaceted impact of such a decision. I may not be an expert in city planning, but I am a stakeholder in this community. As a member of a young family seeking to establish a future in this neighborhood, I would imagine that the removal of green space would not be incredibly attractive to many families who are looking to put down roots. Consider the economic value of green space in the context of property values, community appeal, and the overall desirability of our neighborhood. Research consistently shows that proximity to parks and green areas enhances property values and attracts families. Removing green space might offer a short-term solution to the zoo's parking problem, but the long-term economic health of our community depends on maintaining the quality of life that expansive green spaces like John Ball Park provide. I walk my dog through John Ball Park every day. The simple joy of experiencing nature in the heart of our city is irreplaceable. I do not want to live in a neighborhood where development takes precedent over the well-being of its residents. The West Side is not just a location on a map. It is a community of people who have chosen to make this place their home. We are not against progress. Rather, we believe that progress should enhance, not diminish, the character and quality of our neighborhood. Consider the impact of this decision on the perception of our community. The behavior of the zoo towards our neighborhood has been and continues to be disheartening. If we allow the removal of green space in John Ball Park, we send a message to prospective homeowners that we prioritize short-term financial gains over the long-term health and happiness of our residents. In conclusion, I implore you to vote in hopes that we are able to implement a proposed third option, one which considers the needs of the zoo as well as the community in which it resides. Let us prioritize the economic prosperity, logical sustainability, and well-being of our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Next speaker is Jacob Kern.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jacob Kern. I've lived in Grand Rapids for 6 years. While receiving my undergraduate degree from GVSU, I lived in and around Grand Rapids West Side neighborhood, connecting with the lively community and participating in a growing economy. Having since graduated and entered the workforce, I'd like to stake my claim in the neighborhood, as would a growing number of people in my generation. Grand Rapids has set a number of forward-thinking goals in the hopes of attracting and retaining people like myself, those with an interest in sustainable urban development, public transportation, green spaces, and innovative 21st century initiatives. The plans being presented by John Ball Zoo, however, are in direct opposition to these goals and set out to remove 10 acres of parkland that I enjoy with my partner and our puppy every day. Objective 3B of the Grand Valley Metro Council Metropolitan Transportation Plan states, reduce the reliance on single occupancy vehicles by developing policies that encourage the use or development of active modes of transportation. Objective 2 of the Grand Rapids Strategic Plan states, ensure equitable access to and use of green spaces and recreational offerings, and expand parks and active open spaces to reduce disparities in green space deficient neighborhoods. The West Side is a green space deficient neighborhood. Objective 3 of the Grand Rapids Master Plan states, identify and preserve sensitive environmental resources and valued natural areas. And I think anyone who visits John Ball Park, when it's not filled with single occupancy vehicles, will tell you this is a truly valued natural area worthy of preservation. What troubles me more than the grossly counterintuitive and contradictory plans presented by John Ball Zoo, though, is first, their insistence on passing an impractical amendment to save them from following through with an already impractical master plan, and second, their inability and unwillingness to consider a third option, a community-favored alternative that promotes environmental conservation, provides several creative and forward-thinking solutions to their congestion issues, and offers a chance for meaningful community engagement. Perhaps the most troubling, however, is that the county is willing to abandon goals expressed by the community in favor of the short-sighted, unwanted, and directly hypocritical plans presented by one of its main attractions. To be clear, decisions like these have knowable consequences, and for members of my generation looking for their city of the future, these decisions will do nothing but turn them away. Paving overvalued green space for single occupancy vehicles is a 20th century mistake. And right now you have the opportunity to learn from these mistakes and help Grand Rapids as well as Kent County become a true 21st century community. And I urge you to seize this opportunity. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jenna Lyons.
Good morning. I'm Jenna Lyons. I live on Garfield Avenue. I am also employed by a local university here in West Michigan. I'm here today to ask that the county commissioners consider an alternative option, specifically the one that's being put forth by our local community, instead of adhering to the zoo's 2015 master plan or the 2023 amendment. Last week, I participated in the town hall hosted by the zoo, though I'm not quite sure that what I witnessed was worthy of the label town hall. Historically, town halls are integral tools of democracy, allowing people to come together and engage in civilized discourse. What I witnessed last week was a silencing of voices of dissent and concern in the local community. As the town hall was hosted by the zoo, there was sadly no transparency in letting the attendees know how many people were on the call, how many questions had been asked, and whether the public's questions were actually being answered. There were very clearly scripted and rehearsed answers to pre-chosen questions, with very few questions chosen from the live chat box. This town hall failed to live up to its democratic potential because it didn't allow for engagement or an exchange of ideas. The zoo presented the only two viable choices: support the 2023 amendment, or you'll be stuck with the less favorable 2015 plan. Commissioners, you have a choice. You have power, and with it, you should support your constituents who implore all those involved to make a better choice, one that truly values the needs of the local residents. A year and a half ago, I chose to move to Grand Rapids over all other Midwestern cities and bought a home a block from the park. I could have moved to Milwaukee, Chicago, Ann Arbor, Cleveland, or countless other cities, but I chose Grand Rapids because despite its size, it felt smaller and more close-knit, a place where I could help shape the future of the city. That is what I'm here to do today, to ask you all to consider the future impact of this decision, to think through better options, and to work with the community to shape the neighborhood for the future. Thank you.
The next speaker is Amy Hinman.
Good morning. My name is Amy Hinman, and I live on Ives Avenue Southwest. Thank you for your time and attention over the past few weeks. I've spent a lot of time talking to people in my neighborhood and a lot of time researching this situation. Like many in my community, I'm left with a profound lack of trust in zoo leadership. Mr. DiRenzo continues to assert that this new plan was designed with the community and has broad support for that reason. I encourage you to read through the community feedback in the proposed amendment that the zoo submitted. If you go through the proposal, you can read the many comments supporting green space, and primarily green space, not parking, for yourself. Here's a note from 2018. Peter, the zoo director, began the event by sharing that while the 2015 master plan shows concrete parking lots taking over the green space adjacent to the neighbors, that is not a desired outcome given their core value of conservation. Today, he's proposing a plan that paves the same amount of space, 10 acres. Has their core value changed? We requested a meeting with the county and the zoo to understand how the metrics gathered at the November 15 meeting would be used. We were assured that there would be no votes or polls taken, so I asked Mr. Vanderberg how majority support would be measured. He said that they would not be polling to see if attendees supported the amendment, and the majority support meant doing what they think is best. It is not a reflection on whether the majority supports the amendment. Excuse me. Please keep this in mind when Mr. DiRenzo presents today. Please also keep in mind that the park boundary map with the distinctions of public access and no public access does not align with the lease agreement, which does not include these designations. Another popular idea is using the Butterworth dump as a parking location. The zoo leadership said it wouldn't be possible to develop parking on this site. However, the city official that we spoke with said that parking is an EPA-approved use of a Superfund site and would be a wonderful complement to their solar project. Why did the zoo misrepresent the possible uses of the Butterworth site? Based on these examples, I hope you can understand why we don't trust the zoo. We don't trust their studies that all show that off-site parking isn't feasible. We don't trust that they want to be good neighbors because they're choosing to put parking in park space that is free of cars for 9 months of the year, not zoo space, such as the Hilltop area. And we don't trust the zoo because they're burdening the neighborhood taxpayers with the growth of their business. The zoo has specifically stated that the Hilltop area is slated for more exhibits, so it can't be developed for parking. Why is historic park space disposable? When you have zoo land available, why is expansion prioritized more when infrastructure is clearly needed? Why do giraffes take precedent over our quality of life and property values? So now what? Please consider the points that we're going to bring before you today. Please consider Commissioner Hennessy's encouragement to find a third way and truly do what's best for this community in the long term. Thank you.
The next speaker is Marge Womble.
Good morning. My name is Marjorie Womble. I live on John Ball Park Drive. I have been a resident of this area since 1961. My parents bought the house. My husband and I currently live there. We bought this area because it is beautiful. We see children playing over there. We see people walking their dogs over there. They're not going to the zoo every day. Every day we are surrounded by green space that we need and want. That was the option of John Ball giving this property to the city community. It was for recreation and relaxation. Now it's turning into a zoo. I like the zoo. It's nice, but I can't go over here. You see it. I just cannot believe you would pave over a beautiful green space and deny future generations from use of this area. You don't have to have a pre-planned area for activities. They use this area for soccer, they play ball, they have picnics there. That used to have the city's oldest baseball diamond there, but it was plowed over. There was no consideration whatsoever about that. And then we lost the, we lost the band shell. We lost the nice playground we had when I grew up. We have neglected the tennis courts. We have taken out baseball, softball. We filled in all the hillside that all the children in the neighborhoods would come and slide in the wintertime. We've lost a lot. And I think it's time to stop disrupting and start realizing this park is meant for the generation ahead, not just for zoo activities. We have to preserve this. And I also understand that the pavilion, which is a West Side historic area, is going to be demolished because they don't know if they can save it or not. This is ridiculous. Please vote no and save this property. We need this. Grand Rapids is surrounded by, our area is surrounded by a Superfund, a Coke company. We have the recycle plant and the expressway and a Superfund. I think we need this park more than a parking lot. Thank you.
All right, the next speaker will be Peter, and then following Peter will be Andy Johnston. It simply states Peter.
Which Peter?
I don't know.
You're the Peter. Okay. Well, I'm Peter Carlberg, and I've been at this since 1965 trying to save John Ball Park. I have some maps here that will explain the space and the acreage. This is how the park looked in 2001. The orange is developed zoo area, approximately 17 acres of zoo. This, at the time of the operating agreement, and they had a line across here demarking that this was to be saved as public park space, and this was area for future zoo expansion. This is 2023, and this is how much of the zoo area, about 40-some acres, is developed now for zoo purposes. And you'll notice that some of this is well into this area here. And this is per the master plan that amendment they're proposing. This is the green space they're talking about saving for parkland. That's about 17 acres. So that's about 20% of the total of the area of the park. That's the same thing as this orange spot up here. At the turn of the, not the last turn of the century, but the one before it, 18 to 1900s, in the late 1800s, John Ball Park got 90% of the city's parks budget. It was the only big park that Grand Rapids had, and they invested heavily in that park. In 1912, they passed a millage to build parks everywhere else, and John Ball had to stand in line with everybody else for that money. But it was still the most important park in the city and the most historic park. It was the place when presidential candidates or presidents came to speak in Grand Rapids. They went to and spoke at John Ball Park. When the circus came, it was at John Ball Park. And now, we're looking at a future of that little strip left. And everybody keeps talking about, oh, we're saving that. Well, this process is not saving that. It's destroying that. Let's not do that. I'll leave this here for some other speakers when we refer to it.
All right, Andy Johnston, you're up. After Andy, it will be Margot Sodini Johnson.
Good morning, Chair Brevi and Commissioners. My name is Andy Johnston, Senior Vice President of Advocacy and Strategic Engagement for the Grand Rapids Chamber. I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to speak to the items on the agenda regarding the soccer stadium and the amphitheater. And on behalf of our 2,600 members across West Michigan, we urge you to support these items before you today. Our mission at the Chamber is a thriving and prosperous West Michigan for all. And when we break that down, our top priorities are a vibrant business environment, a talented Michigan, and a place to call home. These exciting and important projects are aligned with all three of these objectives, and the benefits of these projects will go far past their physical footprint. Investment in transformational amenities like these and the additional investment they will bring are tools to attract and retain talent while raising the overall quality of life for all residents. These projects are going to catalyze additional investment in housing units, mixed-use development, connected trailways and green space, improved river access, enhanced recreational opportunities, and more. We have no doubt that these projects are going to support employer and talent attraction. Our region is connected, whether new businesses or residents choose Wyoming, Caledonia, Gaines, Sparta, Lowell, or Plainfield. We know that these investments are a significant component to creating a magnetic community overall. And the items you'll consider today will allow us to move these critical efforts forward. As Birgit Close always liked to say, we sit in the shade because somebody had the foresight to plant a tree 20 years ago. Our business, philanthropic, and community leaders continue to partner to make our tomorrows better than yesterday. I know that my chamber colleagues across the country are envious of the perseverance, commitment, and vision we have in this community to get things done, and we're very fortunate to have this opportunity today. We love to talk about public-private partnerships in this community to drive it forward. These items it's happening today, and that's really, really exciting. The momentum of our community is not assured. It's actions that you're going to take today that are going to help move it forward. So thank you for your time. We urge your support and look forward to the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
The next speaker is Margot Sodini Johnson. After Margot, it will be Caleb Takama.
Hi, I'm a West Side neighbor. I've been in the community for over 30 years, and I, like some of the others, have been dealing with this particular issue for a very long time. My focus today is going to be on the sales agreement and the operating plan, and how sale agreements are implemented and how they're enforced, and the lack of it. At the time of the sale of the park, the sale document said there will be no loss to green space for city residents. I think you can see by the map that Peter provided that significant amounts of green space have been lost to city residents at this historic park. And if you will look at the attachment D2 in that sale agreement, it shows where the park is located, also indicated here. And the overflow parking that's been identified by the zoo director is part of D2 as park, not zoo. The 2023 amendment also stipulates that the usable green space created remain in perpetuity. The original hasn't been enforced, so there's a bit of doubt whether this one would be enforced in the future. There is a trust issue here. The zoo's reference to no public access on their map does not represent this lease agreement, Exhibit D2, which defines public park. So no public access is designated as park, as is in the 2023 plan. The operating agreement between the county and the zoo, paragraphs 2.25 and 2.26, require that the zoo maintain both the zoo and the public park in a manner reasonably designed as not to create or cause complaints for neighboring property owners. I think you've heard many so far. Using the park as overflow parking has created complaints. Then the other point is not to have a detrimental effect on the neighborhood. I know the zoo has said that off-street parking would reduce, or off-site parking would reduce the number of attendees at the zoo. However, there are studies out there too that say that the value of homes increase when they're located next to the park, anywhere from 8.
Thank you for your time. Next speaker, please.
Caleb Takema, you're up. And after Caleb, it is Tina Feemeyer.
My name is Caleb Takema. I live on Ives Avenue. Good morning. Thank you for the chance to share. When I first heard the zoo was working on a park redesign and inviting the neighborhood to share our feedback, I was excited. I love the park and I love my neighborhood. It was exciting to share ideas about how to improve it and to see what could be done to address the sprawling and chaotic parking situation that the zoo has created. I heard very little prior to the meeting, so I didn't know what to expect. When I got to the meeting, I was shocked to see how the redesign was centered around parking lots and car access. When I attempted to discuss alternative solutions, such as using the dump for parking or partnering with public transit, my ideas were shut down. Every idea that deviated from the zoo's plan was impractical, unrealistic, and too hard. I left the meeting feeling demoralized, foolish, and isolated. The zoo acted like everyone in the neighborhood loved their plan, even though we were given few options to choose from, and they all involved paving the park. It wasn't until Amy and Tina started raising awareness in the community that my feelings changed. We as neighbors began to talk about the way our alternative ideas were confronted by zoo administration at the meetings. Many of my neighbors had no idea that big changes were being drawn up. Amy and Tina went door to door, passing out copies of the amended parking plan. The overwhelming response is that we do not like the plan. It serves the zoo's interests at the expense of the neighborhood. Even the zoo's feedback summary repeats the message of the neighborhood that we need our green space. These conversations reminded me that I'm not being foolish. I was just ignored by the zoo, as were many of my neighbors. The zoo needs to practice community engagement in a meaningful way and be straightforward about what their intentions are. I love to collaborate with my neighbors and find better ways to do things. We love our park. Our neighborhood is named after it. It has been a vital part of the neighborhood for 133 years. It was especially vital in 2020 when we were stuck at home with our tiny yards and needed an escape, and we still use it as such. We are not willing to let such a vital space be decimated by parking. We need to find a third option, an option that will serve the zoo, serve the neighborhood, and preserve the environment. It is clear that priority parking is needed for some of the zoo's patrons, but many are able to take a shuttle from a nearby lot. The top of the hill is already a zoo space that would accommodate more parking and hopefully incentivize people using the funicular if they park up there. There's already a spacious, clean, nice bus that stops at the zoo over 60 times a day in the summer. A minute down Butterworth, there are underutilized spaces that could serve the zoo and Millennium Park if they were made into parking. If the zoo is not willing to explore ideas like these, they will never solve their parking problems, and they will not be able to succeed with their future plans for growth.
Tina Fehmeyer. After Tina is Aaron Steenhook.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tina Fehmeyer. I live on Park Street Southwest. Thanks for taking the time to listen this morning. So we're 8 years into a 10-year master plan, and all of a sudden, boom, we have to have parking. We have to have pavement. Parking lots now, right? No other alternative. Does that sound familiar? The zoo feels like it's sounding the alarm that we have to pave and acting as if there isn't an alternative. On the terribly non-transparent zoo town hall last week, Peter stated that he doesn't need to create a new master plan, yet the operating agreement and your agenda in front of you have a target due date of 2/26/25. Funny how when you spin an option A or an option B to the general public, they feel as they don't have a choice or an alternative. May as well just grin and bear it, right? So this has been the zoo's plan all along, make it seem like they're doing us a favor by editing the 2015 plan, add some trails, gardens. We're still left with less park, less wide open green space, and a plan that permanently changes the park. Mind you, when they say that there's less green area lost in this 2023 amendment than the 2015 plan, they're also factoring in the amphitheater land that was never turned into an amphitheater. It's still green space now, should be counted as green space in the calculations. The real truth here, though, is that Peter and the zoo don't have to add pavement to make the park safer and more efficient, and they don't have to do it next year. They can mark the grass in a way to avoid parking inefficiencies, create more jobs by having daily parking staff work the lawn for crowd control, not just on Saturdays, but every day. They can better install barriers around the park and have way better signage of what is park and where is not to drive. They can wait one more year until the 2025 plan is due before permanently ruining a 100-plus-year-old park that was left as green space for the city residents. I'd also like to call out that later in your agenda today, Commissioners, you're voting to send funding to a 12,000-seat amphitheater that required 0 new parking spaces. We're all assuming that the amphitheater will be wildly successful despite those no parking spots and asking people to walk up to a mile to attend from the parking lots that were cited. Somehow, though, a zoo that maxes out at approximately 7,000 folks per day insists that more parking lots on park land is the only way or they will fail and jobs will be lost, et cetera, et cetera. That's nonsense. Cities all over the U.S. are removing parking minimum requirements from their building codes, Grand Rapids included. Yet the zoo still holds onto the false claims that they need to take over an entire park to have efficient parking for 50-ish days of overflow. So if you vote yes, you're okay with letting a business take over a public park. I believe we can think critically and creatively about what can happen otherwise on those 50 days. We can lead the conversation about the proper way to teach future generations about conservancy and natural resource preservation while being pro-business and pro-community. These can all align. Lastly, on a positive note, I actually want to thank the zoo for one thing. Because of this completely ridiculous fight over green space, I've learned more about my city, my neighborhood, my neighbors than I'd ever had the opportunity to before. I've made connections with folks and consider them close friends now. I'm lucky to have that network and that we all have a unified vision of never letting our park space be turned into asphalt. Thank you, and please do the right thing and tell the zoo to delay their...
The next speaker is Aaron Steenhook. After Aaron will be Kennedy Fitzgerald.
Good morning. My name is Erin Steenhook. I live on Garfield Avenue near the park. I want to thank the committee for your vote to delay last time. It's very appreciated. And I wanted to comment that the Teletown Hall meeting that the zoo held last week was very disappointing. I believe the vote was delayed specifically so they could gather actual feedback from the community and the residents. And instead of an engagement session, the zoo it was a presentation of their plan to cover, like you've heard a lot today, more green space. They did allow us to ask questions, but there was no indication that any or all of the questions were actually answered. and I left the meeting feeling as though the zoo is absolutely not interested in any feedback or engaging with the community. The zoo's threat to plow forward with the 2015 plan is immature. Nobody likes that plan, and saying that there's only one or two options, A or B, it's not Sophie's choice. We are all critical thinking human beings, and we can come up with some better solutions. About a month and a half ago, I put a sign in my yard that said Save John Ball Park, and my kids asked me why I put the sign in the yard, and when I explained to them the zoo is interested in putting more parking lot space in their park, I cannot exaggerate when I tell you that immediate shock on their face and then like despair, like, no, we don't want that. And since my kids are at school today, they asked if they could send notes to you all. Because they wanted their voices to be heard too. They are 7 and 8, and honestly, they have more solutions and ideas than I have heard the zoo presenting to us all. So as the west side is already at a detriment and a lack of green space, I would seriously ask you to consider some alternative plans for what the zoo is doing and hear the voices of the community that you've heard a lot this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kennedy Fitzgerald. After Kennedy, it will be Casey Aubel.
Hi there. Good morning. My name's Kennedy Fitzgerald. I'm a John Ball Park neighborhood resident and a West Grand neighborhood business owner. As a homeowner and resident of the John Ball neighborhood, I support the proposed amendment to the zoo's 2015 master plan. This plan will pave the way for the zoo to expand their patronage while maintaining the safety of our neighborhood streets. The current parking situation and traffic patterns around the zoo are extremely hazardous, and there needs to be a change. The zoo has done its due diligence with multiple community engagement events, including the Teletown Hall on 11/15/23. I will say, I did ask and submit a question to the Teletown Hall, and I feel it was answered in a very thoughtful and complete manner. My question was about the economic impact of bringing so many out-of-county residents and the impact on West Fulton businesses specifically. The proposed amendment makes necessary changes to the traffic flow through the neighborhood and zoo and encourages out-of-town traffic to use industrial streets like Butterworth to gain access rather than Lane Avenue. It also paves a significant portion of unusable green space. Personally, I don't know if any of you have been back in that very open, swampy grass field that will be Lot C in the zoo's 2023 amendment. I was walking my dog there, thought I'd cut through the grass, and ended up losing a shoe. So the proposed plan includes new accessible restrooms, native species gardens, and an additional 2 miles of biking and hiking trails. This new active open green space is replacing the current dirt parking and allows for more usable and front-facing green space for our neighborhood. I intentionally purchased a house in the John Ball neighborhood with my husband to grow our family and continue to be avid supporters of Grand Rapids West Side. I cannot wait to see all of the gorgeous updates to the park that my future children will be able to enjoy. I urge you to approve the 2023 amendment to the zoo's master plan and allow them to sustainably reinvest into our community. Thank you.
Next up is Casey Aubel. After Casey is Mark Janes.
Good morning. My name is Casey Aubel. I'm a resident of Kent County and a member of the Board of Directors at John Ball Zoo. Earlier this year, I stopped by John Ball Zoo to pick up my son from a class. I was not surprised that it was a very busy day for the zoo, being a nice summer day that we get here in Michigan. What I was surprised was to be parking in the green space only a few steps from Valley Avenue. This inconvenience for me was minor. I was there only to pick up my son, but I would be remiss not to notice the wagons, strollers, and families navigating the makeshift grass parking lot on their way to the zoo's entrance. The zoo's mission is to inspire our community to be actively engaged in conservation of wildlife and the natural environment. I've seen this through educational programs, summer camps, ambassador animal programming, community engagement, and participation in species survival plans. John Ball Zoo is so much more than simply a place to have animals on display. I'm blown away every day by the pure passion of the John Ball Zoo staff at every level. Their passion is infectious toward the mission. Our vision is to be a world-class zoo, a premier education facility, a renowned conservation center, and wildly successful national visitor attraction, and I believe that we're well on our way. To continue our momentum, we need the help of each of you as our county commissioners. The 2023 amendment has been carefully formulated using direct feedback from the neighbors of John Ball Zoo through the course of 6 community sessions starting as far back as 2018 and going through the present most recently this past November 15. We need the expanded parking to adequately serve our guests and visitors coming from both inside Kent County as well as those traveling outside of the area, from outside of the area. Even with modest attendance projections, our currently paved parking is not adequate. John Ball Zoo is already one of the most popular cultural attractions in our state, setting a record with over 700,000 guests this past year. Looking ahead, we have exciting plans for the future. The 2023 amendment is a better parking plan for the adjacent neighborhood community and John Ball Zoo. Through additional parking, minimizing traffic, enhancements to green space, pavilions, restrooms, paths, and gardens. Once complete, John Ball Park will be another gem the West Side can be proud of. I thank you for your time this morning and your support, and I ask you to please approve John Ball Zoo's 2023 amendment to the master plan. Thank you.
Next up is Mark Janes. After Mark is Michael Locksterman.
Good morning. My name is Mark Janes. I am a John Ball Zoo board member, Kent County resident, and often frequent visitor of the zoo that unfortunately has to deal with the chaotic parking situation. Over the past 4 years, as being a member of the board, and most recently as the chair of the facilities committee, where all master planning, design, and construction activities go before me and my committee, I want to congratulate the John Ball Zoo leadership for the great strides that they've made to be a good neighbor to the community immediately surrounding the zoo. It has worked tirelessly alongside the adjacent neighbor on a parking plan that benefits the zoo, the community, and our neighbors. The 2023 amendment is a better plan for the whole community and the John Ball Zoo. It pays less green space than the existing master plan and the current master plan, and pushes parking to the rear of the zoo safely away from the houses. We need expanded parking at the zoo because of the significant growth of both the county and the zoo. The 2023 amendment was formulated using direct feedback from the neighbors of John Ball Zoo during 6 community engagements, of which I participated in the majority. The amendments to the master plan makes room for additional parking, minimizes traffic throughout the neighborhood, increases safety for the zoo and its neighbors, and provides increased access to the park. It includes enhancements to the park like pavilions, restrooms, walking and biking trails that our whole community and our whole county can enjoy. The zoo is one of the most popular cultural attractions in the state, and more importantly, an economic driver for Kent County. People who visit John Ball Zoo frequent local hotels, restaurants, bed and breakfasts, other small businesses, which pumps millions of dollars into the local economy. It's time for the zoo to have proper parking, and I ask that you pass the John Ball Zoo 2023 amendment. Thank you.
And next up is Michael Locksterman. After Michael is Jennifer Boeswinkle.
Good morning, commissioners. It's good to see you all. I live on Valley Street, just north of the park, and this is like deja vu all over again. We keep fighting this battle repeatedly. John Ball gave the citizens of Grand Rapids this park so they could get away from the urban and have some natural splendor. Now, that doesn't mean it's exclusive just to the citizens of Grand Rapids. However, I don't quite understand how the sale purchase back in the 80s absolves the county from adhering to his wishes. This doesn't benefit anybody but suburban people and people from out of the county. We bear the brunt of everything negative about that zoo, from the garbage to what have. And each and every time that I've attended one of these meetings, this Peter, who I can't remember his last name, he always says, me. I need to give something to the board for me. Me. It's like, it's all revolving around him, and he's the most important person in the room because he needs to feather his resume so he can move on to his next conquest, much like Bert Fescolani before him and whoever is going to come next. Well, we don't leave. We're in the neighborhood. We've been there for more than 25 years, and we're very proud. We moved to this neighborhood from San Francisco because we craved an urban environment. Thankfully, ours had a wonderful park next to it, one of the premier parks in the state for a time, and now it's a shadow of what it was. We just ask you that if you can't necessarily vote yes or no for this, delay it. Let us get the proper approach to this. Each time we brought up to Peter a shuttle system or alternative parking, he just shot it down without any conversation. He is a less than genuine negotiator in all this. He wants what he wants at the expense of us, and I don't think that's fair. So I want you to please consider all of the people that came here today. We didn't have to be here. This isn't the most convenient time for us either, but here we are trying to do what's right for not only our neighborhood, but for the city and the county. Once this green space is paved over, it's not going to be replaced. Where are you going to put in a new park? Are you going to tear down housing for a new park in the city? We love that you've given us Millennium Park. It's really lovely, but people don't walk there. And where's the bus line? How do we walk to Millennium Park? It just seems as if there's got to be some compromise here. There's no public transportation component to anything that Peter offers. Why is that? Oh, because his customers couldn't possibly do that. I just feel as if we need more information, and we can't go off half-cocked with this. Once this green space is paved, it is gone, and we're never going to get it back. So we just ask that you factor that into your considerations this morning. Thank you for your time, and please, best of luck.
Jennifer Boeswinkle. After Jennifer, it'll be Megan Stauffer.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Boeswinkle. I'm a Kent County resident of the last 17 years. I moved to Kent County from the east side of the state. One of the first places I visited was the John Ball Zoo. I had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old at the time, stroller in hand, toddler in hand, parked on the back 40, as I like to call it, navigating my way over that pathway. That did not deter me. I am currently a board member at the John Ball Zoo, and I have come to love it and appreciate it for the asset that it is to our county. There was a comment made earlier by Andy Johnston to the effect of momentum of our city is not assured, and I can assure you as a board member, the momentum of the John Ball Zoo is not assured either. We need to continue down a path of growth for the zoo, growth that improves our ability to conserve and preserve wildlife and wild places, to educate the students of Kent County and the state of Michigan, and to be a valuable asset here in the county that attracts new residents, new visitors, people who pay taxes, people who pay for hotel rooms, all of those economic engine components. I will say, as I look as an architect at the previous master plan, it's amazing to me that original, currently approved master plan actually paves over a significant portion of the park. I personally view the new master plan as a much better solution, both for the park and the park residents, and one that buys us forward. Long term, I've heard lots of conversations about the potential for a deck. A parking deck would be wonderful. It's not in the budget right now, right? So we have to continue to grow the zoo. We have to continue to grow visitorship. We need to continue to move forward on a master plan that supports both the zoo and the neighborhood, provides a safer alternative, provides better vehicular traffic, and overall continues on that path forward to assure the momentum of the zoo, the west side, and Kent County itself. Thank you very much.
Megan Stauffer is up next. After Megan is Matthias Spencer Rapport.
Good morning. My name is Megan Stauffer. I'm a resident of Dayton Street. When I first moved to the John Ball neighborhood as a renter over a decade ago, I fell in love with the community. And the park and zoo had a very large part in that. There was this beautiful green park that would be covered in dandelions in the spring, and Nessie watching over us from the pond. It seemed like there were year-round festivals to look forward to. Westfest in the spring, Taste of Grand Rapids, and Jazz in the Park in the summer, Oktoberfest every fall, and of course the zoo itself, which we would go to once or twice a season. I love these events, and it was a big reason why my husband and I chose to stay in the neighborhood when it came time to buy a house. We could have chosen to move to a neighborhood in which the lots are larger than 1/10 of an acre. But the community feel and the access to green space at the park made this less of a concern. When the zoo began the community input sessions in 2018, my family was excited to participate, to have a voice in shaping the future of our neighborhood park that we love so much. Initially, it seemed like our concerns were heard and may be addressed, though at a later date. But the majority of attendees were asking to have their green space preserved. It seemed like this was a shared vision. Mr. DiOrenzo assured us that the 2015 plan didn't fit with the zoo's vision for the park, and they were looking toward alternatives so that our field would no longer be covered in cars. In the 5 years since this initial meeting, our neighborhood has not seen many of the improvements and ideas first mentioned come to pass. The zoo likes to point to the new playground that was built. However, that project was pushed for and partially funded by the parishioners of Sacred Heart. I have no doubt that groundbreaking would not have happened had it not been for the parish's initiative and agreement to share the cost. The community festivals that were free to attend have pretty much vanished, replaced by events that now happen behind zoo gates, events that carry an additional cost even with a membership. The community engagement that began as a collaboration has now devolved into threats. Mr. DiOrenzo has said either the 2023 amendment is passed or we will be paving what was approved in 2015. This brings about understandable feelings of anger and resentment from the neighbors who thought we had an advocate and partner in the preservation of our beloved park. When asked to further engage the community before a vote by the Finance and Fiscal Resources Committee, the zoo decided to host a virtual meeting and invite 40,000 people. Their reasoning was so that they could have the opinions of anyone that may be impacted by the parking, but it only seemed to dilute the voice of those most impacted by it, those that use the park for more than just a place to put their car while they visit the zoo. The questions read and answered,
Matea Spencer Reppert, and after Matea is Nate Hunt.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Matea Spencer Reppert. I've been a Grand Rapids resident, West Side resident, since 2002 and have been living across from the park since 2007. Many of you recently toured John Ball Park to see in person the parameters of the new parking lots proposed under the amendment. As you toured the park, I ask you to consider, did you notice any cars parked on the grass? Ironically, you did not. I know because I observed the tours. For 9 months out of the year, this is our reality. Beautiful park space, no overflow parking. And for 3 horrendous months, parking and traffic is an issue. We agree cars need to get off the green space, and we don't agree that green space needs to be paved. The zoo has given us and you an ultimatum, a false dichotomy. Either they move forward with the 2023 amendment, or they'll enact the 2015 plan, all while admitting the 2015 plan is contrary to the zoo's values. Given that, it should have never been proposed or approved. We cannot accept that paving the green space of John Ball Park is the only viable option for the zoo to both resolve their parking issues and stay in business. We can find a third way and discover the best solution that serves our mutual values and needs. Today, we ask the following of you. 1, conduct a legal review of operating agreements and sales documents. Ensure the zoo is not in violation. While the contract allows for parking in the park, it is only intended for park amenities. Zoo parking should be elsewhere. Explore potential violations, considering the numerous zoo buildings already on park land. Prohibit future zoo developments on park land. Also request the zoo consider alternate on-site or near-site parking options. We hope the zoo does not abdicate their power and creativity to market research. As someone who built my business working in evaluation and research for 16 years, I ask you to question assumptions and look underneath the numbers. This isn't a win-win for our community. This is a win for the zoo, who wants to pave over a historical gem so as not to inconvenience guests with overflow near-site parking. This plan proposed with the mindset of competitive scarcity, and we need collective abundance. We hope the zoo doesn't compromise their values, but compromise on convenience parking. We ask that you ensure the zoo adequately maintain park space. We are not attempting to prohibit the zoo from offering park amenities. We're attempting to preserve green space. Finally, request the zoo to develop a parking strategy that is coordinated with upcoming large-scale developments. Diminish potential parking pressures in our neighborhood by acting strategically and collaboratively, exploring these emerging opportunities. I've participated in every round of community engagement hosted by the zoo. My message has been the same: preserve the green space. Just because we engage doesn't mean we endorse. Thank you.
Nate Hunt, you are up next. After Nate is Raul Alvarez.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Nate Hunt. I'm a longtime First Ward resident of Grand Rapids. Here to speak about the park, specifically the history of the park, because I believe that history really helps us contextualize this present moment. So the park is 130 years old. It was Grand Rapids' first large park. At the time it was donated to the city, and in the early days, locals referred to it as Grand Rapids Central Park. And the old Grand Rapids Press newspaper fondly remarked at one point that it was the park of the people. The design and landscaping done up in the early 1900s is well preserved today, and most of the trees planted there during this time are still with us. In fact, 2 reports commissioned by the city of Grand Rapids in the early 2000s found that John Ball Park should be designated as a historic district, and that its natural landscape was historically significant and has remained remarkably intact over the decades. But all these details aside, John Ball Park has always been a neighborhood park, one loved by generations of city residents and families. And it just doesn't seem right that these families have had to fight for decades and are still fighting today to keep development from encroaching into this community space. It's really upsetting that this history and this park and what it means to city residents just doesn't seem as important to the county as the zoo does. And I say that because the county has already rolled back protections for the park. When the county bought the park and the zoo from Grand Rapids in 1987, the county did not add John Ball Park to its parks department. Yeah, the park was still called John Ball Park, but it was no longer a public park like, say, Millennium Park is. And then in 2013, when the county leased the land to the zoo, it removed the name John Ball Park from the space entirely. The county now refers to the park in legal documents as, quote, the zoo or public park. So John Ball Park no longer legally exists. The park is made a reality only by the residents who still use it as one and who call it by its name. And now we're watching as the zoo tries to finish the job by taking away most of the rest of the green space for zoo use and parking lots. But you as county officials don't have to let any of this happen. As many have already said, you always have a choice. Please do not put the final nail in the coffin of this historic park. Please protect it. Please take the community's proposals that have been presented here today seriously and work with us on these solutions that both meet the zoo's parking needs and that preserve all of the remaining park space. Thank you.
Next up is Raul Alvarez. After Raul is Ivan Diaz.
Raul, are you still here? All right, let's move on to Ivan.
Okay.
Thank you, colleagues. Good to be here. I was going to speak to a different item on the agenda, but as it appears that it has been removed, I will take this opportunity to speak to the resolution before you in regards to the zoo. A couple of weeks ago, and for context, again, Ivan Diaz, County Commissioner, stay at 926 Underhill Avenue Southwest, represent District 20, which is just south of the zoo on the other side of the river. A couple of weeks ago, myself, along with a couple of you all and some of our colleagues who are not part of this committee, took the opportunity to tour the zoo and to see the proposed changes that are being made. I'm not going to lie, after taking that tour, I was this close to voting yes when this resolution comes before us on the 30th. But after having further discussions with our colleague, Commissioner Hennessy, hearing from the neighbors who live in the area, and doing my own research, my views have changed. Further, I recently took part in the master planning process offered by the City of Grand Rapids, and at that meeting, nobody was talking about adding parking to the city. The exact opposite, in fact. This is a wasted opportunity if we move forward with this amendment. We should be talking about having more public transportation getting to the zoo. We've heard references to the study that was conducted by the zoo and how they can expect a 30% decrease in the number of people visiting the zoo if they have some type of shuttle service. I have not seen this study, and I believe none of you have either. Let the public see it. If the zoo is really that confident in the results of this study and what the impact could be to the zoo and to the community, let the community see it. If there is some type of information in that study that cannot be made public for whatever reason, let the board see it so that we can go into a closed session and really have this conversation through and through. I don't agree that we only have an A or B solution here, either 2015 or 2023. We could have further discussions and have an actual transparent community process, kind of what we're seeing here today, to hear from the community what their thoughts are and what they want to happen in their community. The amphitheater has already been brought up here today. The amphitheater will be just on the north side of the district that I represent. I can't help but wonder what I would think if somebody came and told me, and I live just along Clemente Park, if somebody came and told me that because of the amphitheater and because of the factory yards development that's going to bring hundreds of housing units to my district, I can't help but wonder if somebody told me because of that, we have to pave over Clemente Park, or we have to pave over Pinery Park. If this was happening in your districts, what would you say? What would you think? I urge you to delay this vote. Thank you.
Next up is Ren Burns. After Ren is Dee Jones.
I have my 5-year-old out waiting. Hi, so my name is Ren Burns. I'm a parent and an educator. I just started actually after getting a degree in music education. 10 years later, I'm now assisting at a forest school. And I can tell you right now how challenging it is week after week to get my students to engage with the natural environment that we're all from, that we all belong to and that belongs to us. I thought the zoo cared about the wild spaces. It's literally on the website after just a little bit of research that I did. We're personally not big fans of the zoo, and it's not for the reasons you think, maybe. It's because the moment that my son walked into that indoor enclosure, even the outdoor enclosures, the overwhelming smell of a zoo is something that is very overwhelming for him. It's probably something he'll grow out of. We have sensory processing sensitivities in our family. But one of the things that I can tell you that immediately resolves those issues that I see for my son and for other children that I work with is just being outside and being allowed to just play and explore. No matter what I try to teach every week, our students, I am not really the teacher. The teacher is the place that we are, which is simply out in the world, in the wild spaces, letting the trees and the creek, where the children are allowed to just play freely, do their thing. Every week when I go to this place, I think about all of our neighborhood children that do not have this opportunity, simply because our city is still lacking in green space from an educational and from a canopy perspective. The land equity that we have in the 10 acres at John Ball Park Zoo is significant and is precious and is something that we ought to be expanding upon, not removing. And it's not something that can be quickly overcome in any small amount of time. The average maturity of a tree is 40 to 50 years. Something that when we plant, like someone else had shared, is something that we don't get back. It's something that we give to the future generations of people. And for that reason, I'm here. I'm a resident of the city. I don't live near the zoo. We visit a lot of other beautiful parks that, as the last person shared, we would be tragically sad if they were to disappear. Thank you so much as well for supporting the Blandford projects, which I kind of rewatched the last meeting where you talked about that expansion. And I would love to see the zoo become an ally towards those projects as conservationists, as global conservation, our community being a part of that as well. Thank you.
After D. Jones is Anna Cones.
How is everyone doing? I'm D. Jones, passionate visionary. I'm going to shift it a little bit. But I also want to say first, I am on the board of the West Grand and I support everything that the community is saying because I like government transparency. And me growing up on Social Security and a lot of things, the government is not transparent. I can tell you that now. It's a lot of people in the government does not listen to the voices of the people, struggling people, people in poverty. So I would like to see it. Even if you guys can't come eye to eye, at least give the community the chance to get their feedback heard because COVID-19 did happen and a lot of things did happen in COVID-19. I believe you guys should listen to the community and allow transparency. But I was at the Kent County Networking and Business event and I was chilling there and I seen a lot of, not a lot of the people on the board, but I seen Al, and I was just listening to all of the cool stuff, and I seen the chambers there and things like that, and I was actually going to speak on all of this, and then I happened to see you guys, and it's crazy. But as I was there, I was speaking to somebody on the chambers, and he was showing me something created off the Unreal Engine. If you don't know what the Unreal Engine, I've been speaking to you guys about Epic Games, which is a $32 billion company that developed the game Fortnite. And somebody from the chambers is like, hey, it's a business in Ada that just started. They got LED green company, and they use the Unreal Engine. I'm like, hey, I've been getting the Unreal 5 engine, the Unreal tools all across the United States and across Kent County to Kent District Libraries, and people develop games and videos and all different things and different content. I'm like, this is from the business chamber. And I'm at a Kent County, so I'm at a government event, and somebody is showing me something that I've been speaking to the government about. And then as I'm walking here, there's a little kid whose parent is an educator who's playing a video game, and he's watching video game streams as I'm behind him. And I'm just like, this is just too, I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy, but I just want to say that I'm continuously telling you guys and educating the government and getting the government to try to see what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing it as I'm going to government events, the things that you guys are hosting, things that I'm literally at a government event and watching a young white kid watching game streams and playing video games behind me. And I'm just like, I'm getting these cool things and educational opportunities all across Kent County. And I've just recently connected Kent District Libraries to a network of 300 universities across the nation. And we're going to be connecting on next Tuesday to see how we can build synergy from what I've already connected them to Epic Games, which is a $32 billion company. I've also got to eat at Amway and connect with some people. Forest Hills is there, Fifth Third Bank. I'm working with a lot of banks to gamify the gaming industry and educate people using these Fortnite tools, the Unreal Engine, the Unreal Editor. These are things that I've already told you guys about that I'm seeing as I'm hosting, coming to these government things you guys are doing. Please listen to these people. Thank you.
Anna Cones, you're up. After Anna is, forgive me, James Van Dugenhoed.
Hi, good morning. My name is Anna Cones. I work with the zoo. I'm the grounds manager. So it is my primary goal to maintain the cleanliness of the zoo and also the park, as well as the beautification and accessibility standards that we have. So that's my primary goal. When the zoo gets really busy, as we have all experienced as a community and a business, my primary goal shifts into safety. And so I spend a lot of time out in the parking lot when it gets busy. I'm there with my own team, and I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces in the room because I'm often there holding a flag in my hand, moving the vehicles around the green space. So that's what I do. The things that I would like to talk about today are the reasons why I would be for the 2023 amendment to the parking lot plan. Biggest reason being safety. The parking lot amendment has intentional crosswalk navigation that would help us with our chaotic situation that occurs as it is right now as we use the space to navigate bringing people into the grounds. The 2023 amendment also centralizes beautification in a greater way than the current plan does. It tucks the parking and paved spaces further back into the grounds, so they're not quite as visible to the neighborhood, and they also have a quite thoughtfully designed parking or biking and stroller path that cuts through and kind of weaves with the natural layout of the grounds. And as somebody who sees the way a place that has a lot of children moving through the space for a large portion of the year, I know how kids can run from one direction and be in a place where you don't expect them to be very quickly. So I really appreciate the addition of an alternate way to move through the grounds when it does become chaotic, because it's just the reality that we face at the moment. That is all I have to share. Thank you.
James Van Dugenbood. Apologize for that. Are you in the room?
Is James available to speak? All right. I do not see him.
The next card is simply states Rika. R-I-C-H-A.
Hi, my name is Richa. I live at 543 Prince Street, southeast in Grand Rapids. I've lived in Grand Rapids for nearly 50 years. From the beginning, I and many of my friends from the east side of Grand Rapids, as well as from outside all around Grand Rapids, have used that space and others in John Ball Park and have appreciated that green space for recreation, for picnicking, for just gathering together with friends. So I want to reinforce the idea that it's not just the neighbors of John Ball Park that use it and appreciate it, though certainly mostly, but it's people all around, because it is, as people have said, an iconic park in the area. At least as important, though, I want to suggest a different approach to dealing with the parking issue, which I'm not sure has been seriously considered, if at all. This may shock you if you're not familiar with it. It's both simple and complicated. To put it simply, charge for the parking. Charge market rates for the parking. It may shock you because, like I say, it's not familiar, even though this is emerging best practice in planning. It's something that's been implemented in many cities in the United States, promoted by, there's a man by the name of Donald Shoup, who has promoted this for decades. And in fact, for those not familiar with it, I suggest going to checking out, Googling Donald Shoup, spelled S-H-O-U-P, or the book that's been most influential that he wrote, The High Cost of Free Parking. Don, I'm sure would be glad to consult with you on considering this. Why? Basically, when you don't charge for parking, you're socializing parking. Everything else we pay for, food, housing, services such as health and beauty, is part of the free market, competitive free market. Why shouldn't parking be as well? So I urge you, before accepting this plan, to send it back for serious consideration of this. Please consult with the experts on this. It's an alternative that will save the green space, and in this time of global warming, climate crisis, how can we not do this? How can we not at least look seriously at this issue? Thank you.
Michael Williams, you're up. After Michael is Kara Wood.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michael Williams. I live on Houseman Ave on the other side of town. I I didn't know I was going to talk about the zoo today, but I've grown up in the city for 40 years, in and around. Actually, I've lived all over Kent County. I've lived in Alpine, I've lived in Algoma, I've lived in Wyoming, I've lived in Kentwood, I've lived in Grand Rapids. I work down in Cutlerville and Byron Township. I love where I live, but it's beautiful green spaces and the area's commitment to continue to improve upon those that keeps me here. Doing this is just backwards planning. And I sit on several of our regions' transportation planning commissions, and in doing so, we talk a lot about parking. And I'll be the first to tell you, we don't need another parking lot. But what I do hear is we've got a huge community divide, and you have a job to make sure that the community is represented. And if there's this kind of divide, you can't just make some A-B decision right now, just on a whim, on a deadline, because you set some arbitrary deadline. Or worse yet, somebody sets an arbitrary deadline for you and you just fell in line. We need to take a step back and look at the other options. Actually listen to the voices of people. Because we all know what a Zoom call with a lot of people is like. And we all know what it's like to be gaslit by the people that are supposed to represent our community. But I did come here today to talk about another issue. We pride ourselves on the growth we see in Kent County, and I'm going to keep coming to finance. I'm going to keep coming to the commission because I know the money's there. You know the money's there. Especially within the ARPA funds, to readdress, get us back to where we were and maintain pre-COVID conditions in infrastructure. Our county-wide transportation network that we fund, Kent County Community Transit, is falling short because we don't have enough money, $250,000 to bridge the gap until we get to the end of the countywide mobility task force and its results. Thank you.
Next up is Tracy Bird. Following Tracy will be Annette Vandenberg.
Is Tracy still around and would like to speak?
Okay.
All right.
Annette Vandenberg, are you in the room? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time today. I'm here on behalf of the Director of the West Grand Neighborhood Organization Board of Directors. On November 13th, the board held a meeting and discussed the John Ball Zoo 2023 proposed amendment to their master plan. Our board of directors consisted of 10 residents or business owners of the West Grand neighborhood. They were able to fully go over the 84-page document proposed amendment, engage with our residents in various ways, and have also emailed and had meeting discussions. Items that were discussed at the November 13th meeting included the 84-page document that outlined the plan, documented historical engagement that was performed prior to the pandemic as far back as 2018 until now. This does not include the newsletter, social media post, and more than 60 zoo partners, including us, that helped to share the information out. Safety concerns that have been talked about in many different meetings and events in our community. Overflow parking being in between two playground picnic areas, making it dangerous for children and families when the zoo is busy. Parking complaints from neighbors in the zoo park attendees, not enough parking for the zoo or events, street parking being filled by visitors, residents being unable to park. Complaints from neighbors on Lane Avenue regarding traffic conditions on Lane Avenue that goes straight through a neighborhood with many homes. Previously heard complaints from neighbors about dust and noise being kicked up in the overflow parking area. West Grand Neighborhood Organization volunteers have worked events like Taste of Grand Rapids at the park. West Grand Neighborhood Organization staff and board members have volunteered at many events in the park, including Westfest, community celebrations, and cleanups. Speaking to attendees and neighbors and business owners have heard directly from the various feedback over the past 8 years. Historically, the area where some of these events were held near where the old amphitheater was, it had water issues and sometimes had to be closed off during those events due to how muddy and torn up the area had got. Volunteers and attendees also complained about grounds there. And here are some benefits. The zoo benefits the local economy in our neighborhood, the city and beyond. They have been a good steward of the property and have been continuously making improvements, activating the space, and working with the community, partners, and others. The zoo's programs have helped our community, along with the county, be more mindful stewards of our environment overall. Habitat Heroes Conservation, we've planted over 10,000 trees and various native plants. The zoo's updates over the last 15 years have been very positive and has made our zoo a destination to be proud of. After much discussion, the board voted to send a letter of support for the 2023 amendment to the John Ball Zoo Master Plan. The board feels that the proposed amendment will be a benefit to Kent County residents, neighbors, and businesses near the zoo, while also allowing for the zoo to continue to see growth and benefit our local economy. The amendment would also address a good portion of the safety concerns and complaints that we've heard for years at the zoo. Thank you for your time and consideration for this matter. And one last note, the reason a lot of our events are no longer events is because of staffing issues, and the radio station just doesn't simply have the staff. So the pandemic impacted us on our annual events that we used to have. Thank you.
Next up is Jessica Powell. After Jessica will be Marcus Rignalda.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Powell. I'm here to talk about the historical John Ball Park that's been a part of Grand Rapids since 1884, serving the local community with green space to enjoy in an urban area. I've lived on Dayton Street near John Ball Park for 19 years. I use the park regularly. I used it many years to walk my dogs daily. I now use it with my family. We use the bike trail, the 3 playgrounds, the park space, and we hike the trails in the woods. There are limited unpaved wooded trails in Grand Rapids, especially in our neighborhood. Here in the woods, we can forest bathe and increase our physical and mental health in a positive way. I'm here to tell you that I do not support the 2015 plan or the 2023 amendment for the park. I do not support paving the park or taking park land and privatizing it for the zoo. I also do not support a parking garage that eliminates the woods and trails that our community desperately needs. This historical park is for the community. It's free, green space that the community can enjoy. The zoo is not free nor accessible to everyone in the community. I'm not the only one who does not want the park space paved or privatized. 1,287 people have signed a petition that states they do not want these plans. 3,046 letters have been sent to you stating they do not want these plans. The community does not want the parkland paved or privatized. What I heard in the last community meeting hosted by the zoo was that neither the 2015 plan or the 2023 amendment satisfies the zoo's parking needs. I also heard that even when they pave the park, eliminate park woods to make a parking garage, this still would not satisfy their parking needs. What I'm hearing is none of the zoo's solutions will be sufficient for their current and future growth. Then I ask you, why are we paving a historical community park if it goes against what the community wants and needs and is not even a long-term viable solution for the zoo's parking needs? I want the zoo to use their millions of dollars in profit to implement a better plan that the community supports, or find a new location in Kent County that will meet the demands of the continually growing zoo. There is no rush to pave the park. The zoo can continue using the park to park cars until a better solution is found. I ask that you stop both of these plans from going forward, and we need to pause and find a better solution for the zoo and the surrounding community. Paving and eliminating green space is not what the community wants or needs, and we can find a better solution that doesn't involve eliminating a historical park along with many, many very old trees, including a beloved ginkgo tree that is 100 to 200 years old. Thank you.
Next up is Marcus Rignalda. After Marcus is Herb Siemens.
Hi, everybody. Marcus Rignalda, Gaines Township resident. Also here to mix it up a little bit. Was here to speak on the ARPA resolution, but I think that's off the table. But Anyway, if anything to take away from this morning, it's that the preservation of cultural assets is an important thing, and there's often tension between preservation and economic activity. At the Four Star Theater, where I'm the founder and president, we have both. As many of you know, we were recipients of the first allocation, and have been hoping to get some of those contingency funds. But I love giving updates. Last month, we had 1,000 visitors. We have 19 parking spots, by the way. But thankfully, on nights like last night, our roof is 98% done. The people involved with doing that are 100% Burton Heights residents and businesses. Ray Feliciano led the roof installation, Pioneer Construction, R&R Mechanical, Standard Lumber, ABC Supply, Monte Cristo Electric, and we're getting it done for $10 a square foot, which I am very proud of. Programmatic-wise, my friends at the Chamber were there just last week with the police chief to assist in presenting a bilingual de-escalation seminar to local businesses in a community that is reeling from 3 murders happening in one day in broad daylight. D. Jones just booked his second esports event for February. We're doing a Barbie movie on Friday with a panel discussion from some very well-respected Grand Rapids leaders. There's a breakdance battle on December 2, a folk music festival to benefit Doctors Without Borders on December 7, Caribbean Night with a Texas-based headliner on December 9, R&B on December 23, and Kwanzaa on December 26. I see a former performer in the crowd today. Sydney Smith is a comedian. Remember her playing a benefit there last year and telling a bunch of hilarious queer jokes that resulted in my brothers never giving to the theater ever again. But that's the price you pay for commitment to free expression, and that's what we're all about. So Mr. Johnston mentioned the business, philanthropic, and public officials getting behind transformational projects. I have not felt that at the Four Star Theater, and some of that is a result of the controversy that unfairly was put on the Four Star Theater as a result of that ARPA allocation. So as you consider support today for transformational projects, which I love, by the way, I travel the country to see soccer. I've traveled internationally to see soccer. I go to our natural amphitheater up at Belknap Park to see shows all the time. But as you consider these transformational projects that would draw in Rock and Roll Hall of Famers like Joan Jett and Hall & Oates, don't forget about the places they played 40 years ago. They're still here, and they need assistance, and we're making the most of the funds you give us. Thank you.
All right, and the last card I have here is Herb Siemens.
Good morning. Yeah, it's me, lifetime Kent County resident. I'm here about the zoo. And I guess you don't like that. So anyway, I want to preserve the zoo, but yeah, I want some parking. I think the commission needs to think about the long-term effect of the big spend now. The zoo wants this money, or this project, because they got money, but that's going to incur some maintenance and some long-term spending. So I would proceed carefully. I think the zoo is asking for too much. I attended that Zoom meeting. The zoo director was less than transparent. He offered a lot of comment with no facts, cited no actual record of children being run over, or how many animals saved, how short the parking is on the biggest day of the zoo. And when they talk about growth, how many of these people attending the zoo are actually there just for the treehouse event, a wedding, something, and they're not even going to the zoo. And those are usually at night. So I think the zoo is not being honest with you. And that less than transparent is a little bit of hypocrisy. They talk about how they're conserving. Their record for protecting animals is going downhill. People may have a problem with the 2015 plan. This one's even worse. I think we can accomplish the basics of what a zoo and a park should do without just this big spend and paving over land. I understand they need an access road to O'Brien, but if you put more traffic on O'Brien, you're going to have to fix that street because it sucks. So let's not rush and spend money and then regret it down the road. Some of you are in office because you're against big government spending. You don't like just taking money from big government and an administration you don't like. Let's step back a moment and critically analyze what the zoo is saying, because Peter's performance on that last Zoom was terrible. He didn't cite any hard facts for safety issues or the growth issues. And, you know, if this idea, we don't like remote parking, it works for Cedar Point, it works for big amusement parks. So I would just ask you to be careful before you commit to spending this money, because it's going to require you to keep spending money. Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment? All right. One thing I do want to note is all of us commissioners prior to the meeting received an updated packet of public comment about the zoo master plan, and that was delivered as of 5:30 p.m. November 20. And in that, there were 47 letters of support for the 2023 master plan and 27 against. So just an update. And then a couple other items regarding the agenda. Item number 12, which is regarding the ARPA funding approval. And we are going to be moving that to our next finance meeting. We're going to be discussing that a little bit more. And that'll be on December 5th. So that item will be removed from our agenda today. And then also on your desk, commissioners, there have been two other updates to resolutions. And the first one is item 6. In that, we are going to be striking the words "without limitation." And so that is the item regarding the notice of intent to bond for the Fuller campus. And then the next item is number 16. And that one is going to be, let me flip my page here, regarding the memo of understanding related to the soccer stadium. And that is just in red language on the updated resolution. And all that says is the city and county understand and agree that the stadium will not be funded using any general fund dollars of the county. So those are three updates to the agenda. And then, so our next item on the agenda, and thank you all for spending the time listening and talking to us this morning. The next item is the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes from October 17 and then auditing of checks and purchase order activity. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Commissioner Kallman, support by Commissioner Sparks. All right, any questions or comments on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Our next item on the agenda, item number 3, is regarding the John Ball Zoo, and it's to amend the 2015 John Ball Zoo approved master plan.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to amend the approved 2015 John Ball Zoo master plan to include a revised parking design with the expectation that a new comprehensive master plan encompassing the zoological garden and non-parking areas of the public park will be presented to the county for approval prior to February 26, 2025. Summary. The John Ball Zoo is required to update its master plan every 10 years and submit it to the Board of Commissioners for approval as part of the operating agreement between the zoo and Kent County. The most recent Board of Commissioner approved master plan is from 2015. The zoo will present a new comprehensive master plan by February 26, 2025. The zoo has experienced significant growth over the last 10 years, moving from the bottom 25% of zoos in the United States to the top 25% of zoos. It is the 5th fastest growing zoo in the United States, which requires greater intentionality and urgency regarding accessibility and public safety for visitors and the neighboring community. The current zoo master plan from 2015 extends paved parking to the east closer to neighborhood homes and directs traffic into the neighborhood. The zoo has completed a multi-year community and neighborhood engagement process facilitated by a team of nationally renowned architects, engineers, consultants, and park professionals focused on the most pressing issue of parking. The proposed amendment is in direct response to these sessions and a desire to save green space near neighborhood homes. The proposed amendment was formally approved by the Zoo Facilities Board on August 23, 2022, and the Executive Board Committee on September 15, 2022. In 2023, 4 additional meetings were held with neighbors to reaffirm support for the proposed changes. To implement the proposed parking design, the Board of Commissioners must approve the changes per the operation agreement. The proposed parking will allow for more green space in perpetuity in relation to the 2015 master plan and eliminate all traffic exiting directly into the neighborhood by relocating the Park Street exit directly to Butterworth.
Thank you, Al. Is there a motion for this item?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Green. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Kallman. We do have Peter D'Arienzo here from the zoo and also Alman. We have, if there's any further questions. Did you have some information you wanted to present at all, Peter?
I can provide an update.
Okay, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll ask Alman to join me if that's all right.
Perfect. And then following, you'll be able to ask questions too. Perfect. I'll write it down.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the proposed 2023 amendment to the John Ball Zoo's county-approved 2015 master plan. And today, I'd like to talk a little bit about that amendment and why the amendment is needed and the community engagement that helped inform this plan. Our proposed amendment is a community plan that improves safety, addresses parking, and creates usable green space for the community. It reflects the growth of the John Ball Zoo and Kent County. And with a $100 million net economic impact to West Michigan each year, and as the 5th fastest growing zoo in the United States, we must be proactive and responsible in planning for that growth. We believe our proposed amendment encompasses what the neighbors have asked for and is the best solution for our guests, the neighborhood, and the community as a whole. And before you is the 2015 currently approved plan or an alternate solution that has been developed over years with 6 neighborhood community engagements and a formal report out at the last town hall. And we're working with the space that's been provided with us. About 15 years ago, the county made the decision, and the people of Kent County made the decision to not relocate the zoo. And without relocating the zoo, we worked with the neighborhood to find a solution that provides the most good. So if you look at the on the screen what's provided in front of you, on the left side is directly from our operating agreement, with the exception of the yellow letters that say no public access and public access. Now, why did I express those letters that way? Why did I put that on there? It's because within the operating agreement, the area above the line is defined for zoo use. Zoo use being where you see animals. Zoo use being gated access. So the zoo can use that space through the master planning process, to expand the zoo, to do the African expansion and more. Below that line, the operating agreement defines that as a public park, which includes paved parking and grass parking. And then through the master plan process, the 2015 plan includes a large amphitheater, space for park rentals, and picnic space. The majority of space is designated for paved parking, unpaved parking, and an amphitheater. And this is not what the neighbors envision as a park. The neighbors have consistently articulated a park is a place that they can walk through, that they can use that they can walk their dog and play with their kids. It's not a place for cars. The one on the left allows parking anywhere, whether it's paved or on the grass. The one on the right distinguishes the difference between true park space versus where paved space or zoo support space. So one on the right is our proposal that really is at the core of what we're proposing. The distinction between what is a true park, that is green space, and then what will be used for zoo parking and support space. So that same space you'll see later is where a future parking garage will go on top of the current proposed parking. This is, as you look at the 2015 approved plan and the 2023 amendment side by side, you can see that we've moved parking away from the neighbors. And that's based on feedback we received from 6 community engagement sessions, 5 that we did in 2018 and 2019, and then 1 that we did this year. And the compromise or the request was to create space that cars wouldn't park on and to move parking as far away as possible from the neighborhood. In addition, in the 2023 amendment, we're creating a planting buffer and restoring usable green space that will be tilled, reseeded, and enhanced by flowering gardens and native plantings. And as a reminder, the 2023 amendment is less paved acres of parking than the 2015 plan. The 2023 plan has less paved acres of parking for the 2015 plan. Now, why is that? You've heard me talk many times before. As the zoo grows, as the county grows, as the attendance grows, the need for parking will increase. And we're willing, we feel it's our responsibility to make a commitment to protect the green space. And in the future will be a parking garage against the hill. This amendment includes also numerous enhancements such as picnic areas, covered shelters, public restrooms, along with manicured gardens, and about 2 miles of paved walking trails. It will also close Park Street exit and reposition the exit to Butterworth Street to prevent more than 200,000 cars from exiting directly in the neighborhood each year. This is based on a direct request from many neighbors. Now I'll turn it over to Ullman to discuss the engagement.
Thank you, Peter. This is just a reminder to slides of different engagements that we have made with the community. And at your request, you know, you said, hey, can you guys go and do one more session to kind of report out some of our findings and talk to our local neighbors, which we had a teletown hall on November 15th with nearly 2,000 people participating. And we'll get more of that a little bit here in a second. But just a reminder that before the town hall event, we invited about 15,000 households to various workshop and community meetings to gather input and develop solutions together. I was present for every single one of those sessions and talked to many neighbors during that process. These sessions are incredibly informative and helped us create the 23 amendment, which we believe is the best solution for our community as a whole. This slide here is to represent how we inform folks about the community teletown hall. And many of the suggestions that you guys gave us, hey, this is a great way you should look at this way, do this way, so we can engage as many people as possible to make sure that we have fully communicated out to their group, and we appreciate that feedback from that. And for that event, we actually expanded our reach to a broader community, sending postcard invitations to more than 40,000 households across Kent County, but we specifically focused on the 5 blocks surrounding John Ball Zoo. These homes were 2 mailers to ensure the awareness of the town hall. We also made robocalls to more than 50,000 people, inviting them to the event and to submit questions. So I apologize if you got any robocalls, but again, we're trying to make sure we are intentionally to reach as many people as possible. Also, our team created a webpage where the community could find information about the currently approved 2015 master plan and the 2023 amendment about the teletown hall event. Also, many of our neighbors shared information about the teletown hall on their social media as well. Again, reaching a broad attendance for this. As we mentioned, there was almost 2,000 people that attended this town hall, and we had almost 200 questions. And one of the things that we did, one of the polling event was just to garner of the audience that we had, how many actually we engaged previously, and versus how many people are hearing some things for potentially their first time. And with that polling result, 36% of the folks had already heard about our planned or attended one of the sessions that we had for this town hall. We do believe we at some point need to build a parking garage. However, it is currently cost prohibitive and without similar sources of public funding. In the meantime, our 2023 amendment also incorporates the construction of the foundation of a future green parking garage that we built on the same footprint as the paved parking by the hill included in the 2023 amendment, therefore preserving usable park space. As I mentioned previously, the 2023 amendment moves parking away from many of our neighbors, so instead of hundreds of cars parking in the grass with dust kicked up in the air, that area is going to be returned and preserved to a beautiful green parking space. These are all things that our neighbors have asked for in our sessions that we have had them over the years. The preservation of wildlife, wild places is our mission at John Ball Zoo, and that mission extends beyond our property throughout the world. We took great care to implement protections for existing wildlife and the environment in the proposed plan through the incorporation of flowering pollinator gardens, grass fields, and usable green space. We'll also use green infrastructure to help prevent folks from parking on the grass, including large boulders, grass berms, depressions, and the like. We're planning to use native plants and flowers that attract butterflies, bees, birds, and other wildlife to enjoy. A parking lot with pollinator gardens is much bigger benefit to the environment, as it will much more ecologically be productive than an open field of dust and non-native grasses, which also is damaging to the cars. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Peter.
Thank you. Thanks, Alman. So to summarize, the most common questions that were submitted were around long-term plans for parking. What is the nature of our long-term plans? What's the nature of the use of what we keep calling green space? There were questions around past engagement with neighbors and other parking options that we've considered. And we've looked at parking options that include shuttles, and we've looked at off-site parking and other options. 70% of our attendance comes from outside the city of Grand Rapids. Our primary competitors are the Detroit Zoo, the Indianapolis Zoo, the Brookfield Zoo, and the Lincoln Park Zoo. So it makes it difficult or challenging for someone to use public transit to take the bus to the zoo when the majority of our audience is not originating from Grand Rapids. They're coming from Lansing. With shuttle service and off-site parking, the parking study said that it would impact our attendance by about 30%. And that's because if you live in Lansing, you have other options. You could choose to go to Detroit. And whether it's right or wrong, the majority of families, they vote based on convenience. And it's more convenient to have your car close to your destination in case you have to go back to your car to get a diaper bag or whatnot. And for those of you with kids, you know how challenging it is to navigate with multiple kids to get them out of the vehicle, load up your stroller, unload your stroller onto a shuttle, and repeat the process over again. So we did look at other studies. We also looked at a parking garage, and that's based on direct feedback that we received in late 2018. And because of that feedback in 2019 and then again in 2023, we created more and more green space. Yes, it's true, there is a parking lot against the hill. It's also true that it takes up less space than the current 2015 plan. It's also true that in our long-term planning, we envision a parking garage, a green parking garage that is against the hill with green features such as cascading foliage growing over the side. It's set back every other level so that you can have trees and grass on the roof of the garage. And the intention is if you're standing out in the park and looking towards the hill, you don't see a garage. We also explored the concept of putting the garage at the top of the hill which is currently in the master plan where the Atherton expansion is, the hill is 100 feet above the rest of the west side. And the smaller the footprint the garage is, the taller the garage has to go, making it more difficult to make it a green garage. A small footprint on the top of the hill would require a garage many stories high, making it the tallest structure west of Detroit. And I don't think that's in the best interest of the community. Our plan is to build the garage against the hill and hide it through trees and grasses on top of the garage. Okay, I think I'll turn it, if it's all right, answer any questions that Alman and I could
Yes.
answer.
Thank you. All right, so we do have a couple questions here, starting with Commissioner Antor.
Thank you. I didn't actually have a question. I want to talk in general.
Okay.
Is this a good time?
Is it
for
about the topic?
Yes, absolutely. I just want to talk about the consistency, or the lack of consistency in regards to our priorities. You know, since I've been here, we've acquired thousands of acres of land that we're turning into parks. And in the last 15 years, it's been a priority for us. And those parks consist primarily of green space. There's not a lot of infrastructure on most of them. And green space was really important. That's why we did it. Also, I've heard a lot about safety and the safety. I get it. As a parent and a grandfather, I share those concerns. But the consistency on people getting across the road, I think the city of Grand Rapids has just invested another how many millions of dollars on bike lanes. They're putting bike lanes up and down the streets all over Grand Rapids where you have families and little kids inches away from 4,000-pound bullets going down the road and people aren't paying attention. I think bike lanes are one of the most dangerous things I've ever heard of, yet we're okay with them. And, you know, it doesn't make any sense for me. I want to trust parents to be able to do the right thing in the safety concerns, but we're inconsistent here. I also want to thank everybody for showing up for this because I love public comment, and you know, we don't get a lot of it. And on both sides of the issues, you guys are both, everybody gave really compelling arguments on this. One of the things I want to do today, I used to be a West Sider way back when. I spent a lot of time in that park. I always said the West Side was the best side. And most of my time in that park was spent in the actual green space. Once I saw the zoo once, I wanted to go hang out in the woods and climb the hills and all that kind of stuff. So I understand those concerns of the neighbors there. And I also wanted to defer to Commissioner Hennessy on this because she is literally a living, breathing appendage of that park and that neighborhood. And I think she knows the people there. I think she knows this issue better than probably anybody. And I defer to her input. And I know she is wanting to kind of touch the brakes on this and look at other options. So I appreciate Commissioner Hennessy for her input. The other piece of this, we keep talking about expansion. We got to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't think we do. You know, are we going to compete with Detroit and all these other big zoos? How about let's just be John Ball Park? And as a grandfather, my kids and my grandkids, they don't care how big the zoo is. It could be doubled in size. It won't matter to them. They just want to go to the zoo. So you're not going to lose anybody coming to the zoo. You're going to hit a point in time where people may not come anymore because it's too busy. And that's just the market speaking. I'm in favor of the folks that are opposing this right now. And as much as I appreciate all the work that's gone into this, I think we need to look at that neighborhood because Grand Rapids is becoming unnavigable because we're expanding here and there. We got amphitheaters, we've got soccer stadiums, we got all this congestion coming downtown. We bought all this parkland for green space, and now we're taking green space and turning it into a parking lot. And I don't think it's necessary at this point in time. I just want to see John Ball Park stay the size it is. Let's just call it good. So I'm going to be voting no on this, just because I don't think the return on investment is there. I think we're better off keeping it just the way it is right now and expanding the opportunities to enjoy a park. So, thank you.
Commissioner Antor, just want to make sure that you're clear. If we do not support this, there is still the 2015 master plan, which you saw on the screen has parking in a different area, which also is not agreeable from what I've gathered from the residents.
I understand that.
So the 2023 plan would move the parking area to a place where they plan to build a future.
I'm fully aware. Thank you for
ramp.
that, but
Yeah,
I am
just
aware
wanted
of that.
to make sure that it was clear.
Yeah, it is, and my opinion hasn't changed. I just want to keep it the way it is right now. So, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have to echo some sentiments of Commissioner Antor. This is like economic expansion that is necessary. We do want to compete regionally. I understand that, and I appreciate the zoo. I appreciate what it brings to our region. You said 70% of the people that visit, however, are visitors. And I love having visitors in Kent County. We have an awesome place for people to visit. However, that means there's 30% of the people that live in Kent County around the zoo. And those 30% elected Carol Hennessy and Ivan Diaz. And whenever I have my colleagues that are asking us to pump the brakes, those are the people that they're taking their souls to the polls. I think that we need to pump the brakes, not pave when people are asking us not to pave, and push and see if there's another route, another way, something that we could just find more common ground that's more agreeable. I appreciate all the work that you've put into this, that everyone has put into this. I appreciate this group that has come. They're sitting there patiently. They've got their shirts on. They have truly invested their time, talents, and treasures into making sure that we hear what they have to say. And as I said, Commissioner Carol Hennessy, sitting here in the seat, serving in the seat for years, asking us to put the brakes on. I'd like to respect her, and I'd like to respect the people that came today, as well as the thousands of signatures that we already have. Just to see if there's, not saying no, but saying next, and what other solutions could there be, just so that we make sure that the people that do live here don't turn away. So thank you for listening to that.
All right, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for coming today. I had a few questions. Spent a lot of time reviewing the 2015 master plan, the amendment, the operating agreement, the purchase agreement from '87. And my first question is, the calculus created to measure the parking demand, as I'm looking from the 2015 plan, was that the same calculus used for forecasting parking demands for this 2023 amendment?
I assume you're referring to the number of spaces required. You can take your attendance for what's called a peak design day, which is 80% of your capacity, and then you can calculate the number of parking spaces for that. The remaining 20% are relying on guests finding another way to the zoo, whether it's through parallel parking in the neighborhood or whatnot. The reason why the zoo is currently on the grass 100 days a year, filling up the front, and 50 days filling up the entire green space, including the area against Butterworth, is because there isn't enough paved parking. So the 2023 plan, even though it's less acres, it moves the parking against the hill. And our intent is to build some paved parking and then develop plans for a parking garage and other intermodal modes of transportation. So the 2015 plan or the 2023 plan won't serve the needs of the zoo 5 years from now or 10 years from now. And it buys us the time to develop a concept that is a better solution. And we think the better solution is to put the parking garage on something that's already paved. And by paving on the 2015 plan, it would mean a parking garage against the hill and additional pavement out front, which would no longer be needed if you had a parking garage.
So, and as I understand it, as I'm looking at this plan, the parking demand has this asterisk that actually clarifies that it's the paved parking spaces, the overflow parking spaces, and street parking. So it's the idea of your total parking demand, including street parking, is determined through this formula involving 1% of annual attendance, 80% of that, applying 3.5 folks per car, and then that turnover rate somewhere between 1.5 and 1.75.
Yeah, it's 2.7 people per car, I believe, or 3.1?
It's 3.4 as
Oh,
overall.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Here, why don't you take it? You know the data better than me.
Yeah. And, I'm not the best at math, but I at least use that formula against the 700, and it suggests that there's a 915 and 1070 parking demand based on your last year usage, correct? But that also includes the overflow parking options and street options.
And we also looked at, we were asked to look at what if people parked in the neighborhood? And if you took all of the parking that's on the grass and pushed it into the neighborhood, it would require 100 blocks of city streets to fit that amount of cars. And that's assuming there are no residents actually parallel parked already. Now, obviously, the free market, people aren't going to park that far. And also, you can park in multiple directions. So it works out to roughly 20 blocks north and 20 blocks east in order to fit that capacity. And I don't think many families would choose to park that far away, and that's why we think they'll choose to go to another zoo.
So, moving on, I guess the one question I do have is, at this time, you continue to grow at a very torrid pace, which, currently you're serving through essentially everything being overflow parking. But that also is including folks who do elect to park on the street, correct? And under the current climate, there are attendees who park on the street, and you continue to grow at a very torrid pace. It doesn't suggest that the status quo alone is an option, but it begs to question whether whether all of the parking demand calculus should be met through paved parking. That's, I guess, what I'm asking is, given the fact that you're continuing to grow at a very torrid pace, and that includes street parking as an alternative, and while I would not completely depend upon street parking to meet those demands, it does beg to question whether the 900 some odd spots that you're asking for in this amendment to essentially take your current parking demand projections and totally have them on site through paved parking, whether or not that's appropriate or not, or whether or not some modicum that still relies on street parking to meet that parking demand total is appropriate.
And to be clear, we're saying with this parking plan on a peak day, that 80 to 100%, we do expect people to absolutely parallel park. And the reason for that is we'd made a commitment to not park on the grass, even when it's needed. And we think that's a better solution based on neighborhood feedback. It is mixed. There are some neighbors that don't like the idea of cars parked in front of their house, but there are also many neighbors that don't mind. So we're using a multi-pronged solution, and it does absolutely include street parking. And I don't know, Alman, if you have anything to add to that.
No, that's correct. Also, just want to remind the commissioners here that no new paved parking in the park area has been done since 1963. So we've been making do, the zoos have been making do through city ownership, county ownership, now the John Ball Zoo management agreement, managing with what we have had since 1963. And when that was put in, that took out a par 3 golf course at that time.
And I think that's why at the crux of the issue is, should there be a zoo on the west side or not? When the Kent County's voters decided to keep the zoo on the west side, that actually set the stage for how do you allow a zoo to exist on the west side and create usable green space. And the more than 3/4 of our operating budget's based on earned revenue. So could you keep the zoo smaller? There would be alternate needs of funding in order to support the operating budget if we couldn't rely on earned revenue. And we're all feeling the pressures of inflation, And as long as inflation keeps going up faster than the public funding, we have to find other ways to balance the budget.
My next question is involving what you cited in previous conversations, I believe at this town hall, and then in the written response that we received earlier, that the shuttle service option would result in a 30% reduction in attendance. Is that a 30% reduction of current attendance or a 30% reduction in projected increase of attendance?
It's a 30% reduction of current attendance.
And
Future attendance presumably would be larger because you'd be at capacity and more people would be required to use shuttle service.
And was the consideration of that, was that conclusion made because of the kind of the second stop or the proximity and time it would take?
It was made on two primary factors. The first is the convenience factor, or the time it would take of loading and unloading on a shuttle. And then the second was the perceived concept that my car is too far away. I'm leaving things in my car that I might have to go back to, and I don't want to be dependent on a shuttle.
And then my last question involves actually these two maps that I'm seeing here on the screen. So as I reviewed the lease and operating agreement that we approved years ago, it references the 1987 city-county purchase agreement around the 150-foot buffer that I think is called out in the 2023 amendment slide that we have here. And it reads, the buffer zone is shown on the attached Exhibit G, and may not be developed by the corporation pursuant to the terms of that 87 county-city agreement. As I review that agreement from 87, it further defines what developed are as improvements, excluding the areas along Butterworth and Lake Michigan Drive that don't have residential properties, and excludes existing improvements, namely the one part of the existing parking lot built in 63 that is in that buffer, and also exempts driveways for egress and ingress. As I look to the differences, if we can go back to the slide that compared the 15 and 2023 amendment, while the buffer is not overlaid here in the 2015 master plan, it does suggest there's a significant portion of those different iterations that are within that buffer zone. And so my question, and this might be a question for admin or for you, Mr. DiRenzo, is it truly possible to, even if it was approved by or accepted by this board, does that void the buffer zone requirements that we hold in our operating agreement? And is the 2015 master plan actually executable at this time?
So the current 2015 plan doesn't extend parking to the left within that 150-foot buffer. It does extend it farther out to the bottom of the screen, but it stays on the same line where the current parking is. As you referenced, it allows for the exemption of the current parking lot. I'll defer to county legal on the interpretation of the city contract. I can speak to the contract that we have with the county. But if for some reason that 150-foot buffer couldn't be used, you could still execute the 2015 plan. You would just stay outside of that 150 feet. You would continue as far south, mapped south, and which is east, and you could still go all the way west because you'd be well outside of that 150-foot buffer. So the short answer is yes, the 2015 plan is executable. We may have to, I defer to legal on the 150-foot buffer, but the vast majority of that space is still well outside the 150-foot buffer.
Does Corporation Counsel have anything else to add?
I think what you're dealing with is that the master plan is not a construction specified plan. It's not built for specs. It's not going out for bid. Obviously, when a packet did go together, it would have to respect that 150-foot buffer. So at the time it was let, at the time the construction was done, and at the time that the county looks at those construction plans is the time that we would make sure that it's in compliance.
Thank you.
And if it's helpful, the map on the right, the 2023, stays outside of the 150-foot buffer. So you can compare the difference between the left and the right and envision the parking space out front would just continue towards Valley outside of that 150-foot buffer.
And then my last question, and I'm unsure if it's in this slide deck, but when we reviewed the amendment last month, there were phases to your proposal. There was phase 1, 2, and 3. We're at the end of November of 2023. In the hypothetical situation that this gets adopted, and it wouldn't be formally adopted until November 30th anyway, how much could be accomplished before the beginning of next season, which I assume is the real window where you can build without interfering with your operations? Yeah, I guess that's my question, is how much could be accomplished before the beginning of the 2024 season?
So if I understand the question, if the 2023 amendment is approved, how much can be accomplished next year? We would start the design to go to construction drawings, which is what we do over the winter. And then I don't anticipate the 2 lots against the hill being completed until the end of next year, but I think I'd like to ask Alman to
That's correct.
create.
That would be the goal, is to complete the 2 lots closest to the hill and the road to Butterworth before the end of next year.
And maybe just speak to when we'd start moving earth due to
Yeah,
the
it's-
winter freeze.
So, again, it's going to take time to do the construction drawings, the rest of the approval phases. Their goal was starting construction in August of '24 to meet that. So it's a pretty aggressive schedule.
I mean, I certainly appreciate optimism and aggression when it comes to trying to meet deadlines, but I also don't, I wonder if truly all of those items can be completed before the end of next year. And the reason I ask this is that you do have your next master plan update that's due by February 26th of 2025. So we're 14 months away from that. And while I for one, can understand, I don't think the status quo currently works. Regardless of projected growth or not, the status quo, given your current attendance, I don't think is a viable option for the long-term success of either the park or the zoo. And so there's part of me that is inclined to think that there is some degree of additional parking on site that is reasonable. I pause on all 3 items being added, the totality of the 2023 amendment being appropriate or not. And so I think my question is, the phase 1 option that, as I see it, as was provided to us previously, involves the extension into Lot A, the creation of Lot B, the creation of the new throughway, but retaining Lot C as grass overflow parking. Is that seen as something that could be reasonably accomplished next year while folding into the master plan a more determined strategy that involved the county in finding a way to pay for a parking deck?
So we've been doing this master planning and then on the park side for 6 years. So, and we feel the need to build parking because it's 6 years too late. And to wait to go through the master planning process, that could mean a solution for parking that's parkable, meaning cars can park, would be end of 2026 or early 2027 if we wait through the master planning process. And we're still having discussions internally about what must be submitted at the 10-year mark, whether we want to submit the current plan with no changes or with proposed changes. And I don't want to rush the master planning process that encompasses above the line inside the zoo. So we've spent the last 6 years focusing east of the line, and I don't want to rush what would happen west of the line. So this parking plan is an amendment that focuses only on the public park section of the master plan. And my biggest concern is it's already been 6 years, and to add a few more years. And we do get numerous complaints about the current parking situation, and I'm trying to balance the needs of Kent County and the neighbors that have spoken that don't like the idea of cars being on their grass. And as each year goes by, that 100 days of the front area being full of cars will continue to grow. It'll be 110, 120, 130, et cetera.
Any further questions?
I am done. Thank you.
Commissioner McLeod?
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to just clarify, you had mentioned something earlier that either if we don't approve this amendment, the 2023 amendment, then the 2015 plan is what's left on the table. Based on what I've heard today, hearing, my fellow commissioners, specifically Commissioner Hennessy, who represents this area, very concerned about both options that are currently on the table. I just wonder, we don't appear to have any good options at the moment. And that's concerning because all of the people that took their time to come out today and share their concerns. There was mainly people that did not like the options that were provided, but we had plenty of people through emails and, this packet that was provided to us was overwhelmingly, in support, but the hundreds and hundreds of emails that I received weren't necessarily in support. And so I think that there's a lot of different perspectives out here that we need to value and we need to take more time. And so I'm uncomfortable with both options, and I just want us to consider how we might get another option on the table, because neither one of these seem to be an option that really takes into consideration what the community says they want. I love the zoo. I love zoos in general. I like the fact that it brings in economic development, but if this were in my community, if this were in my backyard, I probably would feel very similar to the residents that have shown up today. So I would just ask you a couple things about the 2023 plan. It seems to cut in half the green space that is currently available, and I just wonder, are there other options on the table to address some of these concerns, or is this it? Is it timing that you have to move forward with this plan? Is it something that can still be considered and changed in some way to accommodate for more green space? I understand the need for parking, but I've heard it a couple times today already that once it's paved, that's it. It doesn't become unpaved, like it's going to remain that way in perpetuity. And so are there other ways to address some of the concerns that are still on the table that don't seem to have been addressed by this last meeting that you had, that from what I heard from my constituents, from people that have been calling, it was more of a report out. You said that there were 2 questions that were asked, and one of them was, have you participated before? What was the other question that was asked during that town hall meeting?
The question was, did you learn anything more from this session?
And can I ask what the results of that question were?
Do you have those numbers exactly? No. Yeah, if we have Sydney, who Byron Frisk actually ran that event for us, she has some better exact numbers.
Hi there. I don't have exact numbers for you. We actually experienced a technical difficulty during that question. People were not able to see all of the options, so we did not include that in our presentation today.
Okay, thank you. And so I guess in that, there were over 200 questions submitted. And based on whatever data you collected from that last session, do the people that were participating, do they feel like those questions were answered? Do they feel like, because a town hall is a conversation, it's a back and forth, it's not a present out, it's a presentation partially, right? But it's also a time where constituents are able to ask questions and receive answers at that time. Did that happen?
We did receive roughly 200 questions, and we answered many questions. In town hall, we kept it open longer than the published time. And when we closed it, we collated all those questions into FAQs, and those are on our website, the answers to those questions. Of those, they were not 200 unique questions. They rolled up into about 5 or 6 buckets, and those questions are all answered on our FAQ.
Okay.
And going back to your earlier question on are there other options or where are we at with these? We're balancing the neighborhood, and you've all heard me say that cars consistently parking on grass doesn't create usable green space. So if we do nothing, it means more cars when the weather's nice, when it's warm out, taking up the park. One option is to do nothing and defer to the wishes of the Kent County Commissioners of 2015 that approved the current plan. And while that does create more paved space, what I heard from the neighbors was we want to have open green space, and we don't want cars parking directly across the street from us. So we moved it against the hill, and the 2023 proposal is less acres of paved space than the 2015 plan. I suppose what's being implied or what some of the neighbors have articulated is, well, maybe there's no paved space and there's no grass parking. But a business that can't get customers or guests to its front door is not a business that can operate, whether it's a zoo or a grocery store or a retail outlet. And then our business, 30% are from the city of Grand Rapids, from spread out all over the city of Grand Rapids. 70% are from outside the city. So coming by public transit is not a solution for the overwhelming majority, even in county outside of the city. So having a blended approach that has in-street parking, public transit, which unfortunately isn't utilized, but we do have a bus stop at John Ball, and paved parking. And then as the community grows and the county grows and the attendance grows due to the population of the county, exploring other parking solutions. But why spend the money on a parking garage until we can have the deeper conversation around how does the West Side going to address all this growth and the number of parking that's needed? So we're proposing a minimally invasive plan compared to the 2015. But it is different than what has been out there for decades. And the difference is the voters decided to keep the zoo on the West Side. And zoo guests need a way to access the business. And how do we build as few parking paved spaces as possible to set the stage for a deeper and broader discussion around a parking garage or other modes of public transit?
So thanks for that explanation. I just feel like we have to rethink what our options are, and I don't believe that it's an A or B option, and I think that we need to figure out a way to provide some additional options for this particular situation, because neither option really, in my opinion, is a good option at the moment, especially considering that the community is not doesn't appear to be supportive of either. So I'm going to defer to my colleague, Commissioner Hennessy, and not be in support of this, although I'm definitely not in support of the 2015 plan either, but I feel like we just need to hold on this and not move forward at the moment.
Commissioner Merchant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Pursuant to Standing Rule 1.9, I will be abstaining from this vote.
Thank you. You had told me that ahead of time, so I appreciate you with the reminder. Commissioner Kallman.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate all of the discussion. This is a difficult issue to balance all the stakeholders. It's really challenging. I remember this being part of the issue in the whole Kent County Wildlife Park discussion many years ago, which I looked up and was 19 years ago. It doesn't seem possible that it was that long ago, but at the time, Kent County voters 55,000 voted in favor of moving the zoo, and 66,000 voted in favor of keeping it at its current location. So that decision kind of was made then. So we're kind of then stuck with this difficult balancing act. And I've become convinced that it was the right step for us as this committee a month ago to push the pause button and allow some more time for, official discussions in the town hall, but also just community feedback. I know I've received, hundreds of emails and other discussions. I'm sure other commissioners have as well. And so I think that pause was the right thing. At this point, I think it behooves us to move this out of this committee to allow other commissioners to deliberate on this in the full Board of Commissioners meeting. I think that two commissioners, I think, spoke in public comment, and I've seen 5 or 6 here at various times. So I know that they have probably more to say, and I think we should move this at this point out of this committee. I do want to just touch on, so I really appreciate, I think Commissioner Antor said, all of the perspectives and those taking the time to come provide their perspective in public comment. I especially appreciate, the Save John Ball Park group for not just, providing their comment in opposition, but for providing, alternative solutions that they're looking at. And I appreciate the zoo board for, also considering all of these options as well. I do think one of them in there was add angled parking spaces along Valley Ave. It says the city found that 70 angled spaces could be added along Valley Ave, which is an increase over the 43 parallel spaces used currently. I would just call on City of Grand Rapids to take that step. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I don't know exactly, who within the city would have to approve that happening, but I do think that proposal makes sense. As I'm looking at it, one of the considerations that really comes to my mind is just those with mobility issues, those especially in wheelchairs. The 2023 amendment appears to me have a lot of positives in that regard. Putting additional spots. Some of the placard spots that are available fill up so quickly, and in the current situation, you end up out, quite a distance parked in the grass, and it is not a great situation for those with mobility issues currently. So I do think it helps with that, and some of the proposals like a parking lot at the Butterworth landfill, I think probably could make some sense someday, but it definitely, the accessibility issues are kind of near and dear to me, and I want to see that whatever plan moves forward, that's taken care of. I was my question is really just around a couple specific things related to kind of consideration by the zoo board and yourself on the kind of constraints, that we're dealing with. One is, I think Commissioner Antor brought up the idea of, the zoo just kind of deciding to operate in the current constraints. Has the board considered that, basically pausing expansion and not competing with a Detroit Zoo, et cetera, but just, allowing it to remain, a smaller kind of Grand Rapids zoo? Mm-hmm. And then kind of related to that, but the most intriguing comment to me, public comment today, was I think it was Richa who said, look at the kind of economics of the parking. The high cost of free parking sounds like an interesting book. So I'm just curious if that's an angle that I until this morning hadn't heard. So the constraints of just remaining in kind of a smaller, more, city county, zoo rather than trying to compete regionally, has that been considered by the board? And similarly, has this idea of the economics of, parking prices been considered as an option to accommodate these needs?
Right, so you have a few questions in there. I'll do my best. If I forget one, please tell me. Have we looked at not growing and being more of a local zoo or regional zoo? And we did have conversations around what that would mean from an economic impact, and if you're no longer attracting people into the county, what does that mean? But the bigger conversation is around funding. So if you're no longer attracting people from outside of the county and you're relying on the population here, that's a different attendance model. And the current level of public funding does not cover the loss of earned revenue that would represent. So it's not a financially viable option, but I suppose that is a decision for the county on sources of public funding and whether or not we want to put the local amenity or regional amenity on the local taxpayers, or if we want to use an earned revenue model and rely on out-of-state visitors to contribute to the economy. And those out-of-state visitors generate millions of dollars of incremental tax revenue for the county and the city, and that would represent a loss of millions of dollars of tax revenue being paid for by out-of-county residents. But we did have the conversation, and with the current millage representing about 20% of our budget, we rely overwhelmingly on earned revenue. And unfortunately, inflation has increased at a much faster rate than the 20% of the operating plan. So short answer is yes, we did look at that. The other question, we looked as a board and as staff, we looked at other parking solutions. And what we came back to was parking off-site does not create a place to make it easy for your customers to reach you. So if you have off-site parking and then you rely on public transit or a shuttle service to bring you to the zoo, that creates a barrier of adoption and the consumer won't use. And if you think, the zoo is a vacation destination. When you think back in your personal lives, if you leave the county and you go on vacation, do you usually park at your destination? It's those same type of behavior that's driving that study. Regarding pricing, I think that was the third question. Yes, the 2023 proposed parking absolutely reconfigures the lot so we can charge for parking. So that's already in the plan. And that was suggested by a neighbor in 2018, and it was long since incorporated into the parking plan. And it was also part of the parking study that I referenced to determine a price point that the consumer would be willing to pay before they decide to go to a different zoo. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seems like we have a complex option here, a couple of them. You know, parking is something that's always going to be a tension, no matter what crowd we're talking to. This master plan is certainly not an ending point, as we all have noticed here. And it's really a starting point, I see, the 2023 master plan. But the park and the zoo and the neighbors need to find a way to coexist. And I'm not quite sure if we are at a point where we're ready to make this final decision. But I would love to hear if you have any other questions or comments. Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Chair. I have I guess a point of information. I just want to be sure. I think there's probably some value, given the conversation today, in us taking an opportunity to noodle this a little bit more and talk with the stakeholders and the neighbors a little bit more. I guess my point of information is for Linda, procedurally, if we were interested in postponing this item to our next finance meeting, would a motion to postpone be the most appropriate motion to accomplish that?
Yes. And a motion to postpone to a time set, and we would reference that particular meeting.
Okay. Given that, I would, Chair, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this item to our Finance and Physical Resources Committee meeting on Tuesday, December 5th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Wooden. All right, any questions or comments regarding this motion? Commissioner Sparks.
Madam Chair, do you feel that it gives us enough time to do the homework that we need to do? We don't want to just table it, just to table it. We really need to have some resolve when we come back.
I think, what were you going to say? Commissioner Wooden.
I would only suggest that maybe it gives us time. You know, we've asked the zoo to engage the community. We ourselves have witnessed some of that. I think it's now on us as this body to take that step. And, you know, I think one thought that keeps returning to my mind, because I'll be candid, there's part of me, I struggle to find an option that doesn't involve some new additional paved parking, just given where their current status quo is. I'm not necessarily talking about growth, I'm talking about current usage. But whether the 2023 amendment is too much, I agree. I think we've gone, that plan, despite the attempts made by the zoo that I think have been made to mitigate the additional paving, I just think that's too much paving. There may be an option, I again look at phase one as that it adds one new lot that would likely be an eventual parking deck if it, should that financing become available, and expands the existing valley lot, and retains one area for overflow. I think considering that option alone and discussing with neighbors about that one.
Only discussing the motion to
Oh, I'm
postpone.
sorry.
I know.
That's why I think the postponement is valid, because I think considering a reduced option requires our conversation with the neighborhood as the final approvers of this amendment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm just looking at the holidays. We're right here with the holidays and Thanksgiving, and then we're at the 5th. And I appreciate what Commissioner Wooden's saying, is that it's on us. However, we're not doing the work because it's going to go to our staff, and then our staff is going to need to figure out with the executive board how we can move forward. And I don't want to be rude, but amendments, come on. We do amendments all the time. So we're looking at option A and B. We don't have to just look at option A and B. We can amend option A and B and C and Z, or whatever we want to do. So let's get a little more intentional, diving into what we need to do here so that we can come up with a solution that really works.
Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. So I made the motion simply to begin the conversation about a postponement. I'm certainly open to a friendly amendment to the motion that would allow us to consider a different date if that's, something that the committee would like to consider. I'm sensitive to Commissioner Sparks' considerations about the holiday. I do want to make sure that we're intentional about what we do with the time that we have. So I don't want to come back here and be in the same spot where we are today on the 5th, but that's our next scheduled meeting. So I guess I'm open to the conversation about that.
I am trying to remember if that is our last finance meeting of the year, but it looks like we likely have one on the 19th as well. So with that in mind, would we want to consider a future date? Commissioner Kallman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my concern with the motion to table to whatever date is just, so this committee has, spent, I think, 5 hours on this topic now, which I think the topic is worthy of additional time. But my concern is we have half of the commissioners who are not involved in this discussion when it's at the committee level. Are we obligated, if we vote to move this out of this committee to the full board, are we obligated to take it up on the 30th or whatever it is? Or can that be the postponement that would accomplish the thing that Commissioner Green is trying to accomplish with this motion, but in a way that would enable the next conversation to allow all commissioner input?
I believe we would likely have to suspend the rules. Am I correct? No? Can you fill me in?
No, there's no rule that says it has to go to the very next meeting from a standing committee to the board. That would be within the bailiwick of the board chair to set the agendas on the board meetings. There are certain things that we do quite frequently that have quite a period of time in between the committee meeting and the board, such as the budget. You know, we do the CIP and we do other parts of the budget very early, and you don't see that again until the final budget approval.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your comment. I was expecting you to bring it right to the full board instead of finance again.
No, yeah, just to be clear, I'll vote against this particular motion because my preference would be to vote it out of this committee and then postpone that discussion to allow that time that Commissioner Green is proposing, that additional time, but so that the next conversation can include all commissioner input.
Okay. Commissioner Hildebrand.
Thank you, Chair. If we don't act on a resolution, like the one before us, and so it was just kind of like a public testimony, then can we just take it up and post it on the agenda, a future agenda when we're ready? So just no action, and when we're ready, we'll post it and be off to the races. And that could be December 5th, or it might be March of 2024. I don't know.
Okay, now that's something the board hasn't done before, so if you did a motion to postpone to indefinitely, in general, that kills the main question, and it would have to, in essence, be reintroduced. So if it didn't go forward out of the committee under Robert's rules, then when it comes back up, it would come up, you'd have this information in the back of your head, but you'd come up with a clean slate and a clean record. You could incorporate some of that, in the supporting documentation when you bring it back to the table as a new matter, but it wouldn't come back as revisiting this exact action request. It would be redrafted, new dates, new information. You would not see this particular, as we call them, ARs, action request, again. You would see a new one.
All right, Commissioner Wooden.
Just a quick point of clarification. If I recall correctly, a motion to postpone can also be to a meeting no later than. So a motion to postpone no later than January 30th of 2024 could be considered, and it would require that sometime between now and January 30th of next year, that the Finance and Fiscal Resources take this up. And that could provide some of the flexibility I'm hearing from my colleagues asking to account for the end of the year, and potentially an opportunity to have a full board deliberation. When we have these larger discussions, I think of our budget process or our CIP. We have the full board work session, or even if it's a work session of this body that includes those who are not part of this committee, then it's taken by the committee in formal action, then it's brought to the full board. So maybe that, to my colleague's point about broader board deliberation, that has been the way we've done so in the past. So if that is the wishes of the board, it could make sense to have postponement until January 30th of 2024, no later than, for this committee to take it up. I guess for purposes of discussion, I'll offer that up as a friendly amendment to my colleague's original motion.
That's a friendly amendment.
And that's the second I accept my own friendly amendment.
Okay, we do not need to vote on that. Okay, Commissioner Hildebrand.
Well, just thanks for a second time, Chair. The other thing, to Commissioner Coleman's point, I think we've done our due diligence on this committee, and I know resolutions can go directly before the board. So, I mean, I think that, you know, work needs to be done, and when commissioners feel they're ready and there's enough support, I don't think there's ever going to be unanimous on this issue. When there's majority support on the full board of commissioners, we bring it up before the full board, have another hearing, and have a vote when commissioners are ready. That could be in 2 weeks. It could be next year. I don't know, but I think we've done our work here on this committee.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with that. I think it's time to vote on this up or down with the thought process, like Dave just said. We're going to have future time to deliberate this stuff with a full board and get all that input. I just think if we, with all due respect to kind of tabling this again, I think we're going to circle back and find nothing's really changed. I think everybody's pretty much set. I think we've explored every possible option, and I think we're just kicking the can down the road in essence. I think we've tabled enough, and I think we've reached a point where we have to move this. So I would be in favor of moving it today and voting on it up and down, and then seeing what happens after that with a full board. Thank you.
So, let's see here. We have a motion to postpone to no later than January 30. That is our motion currently. And if we decide to do that, if that passes, and that would still have to come back in the same exact format. There would not be a new action request. It would be the same exact thing that we've worked through here today. If we had a motion to postpone indefinitely, we could come back with a alternative option. The action request could be something different, correct?
A motion to postpone indefinitely closes this file, and when it would come back as a new item, yes.
And that could be something that our board here, we've heard it, we've listened to this. We could maybe look at it with another set of eyes with our full board in a different way. It doesn't necessarily need to come through the Finance Committee. It could be taken up directly by the Board of Commissioners.
Well, our process is that if it's a brand-new item, it would come back to Finance to be moved like any other brand-new item.
Unless the chair.
The chair he controls the agendas for the Board of Commissioners. If he wanted to bypass a committee, he's bypassing our established process. And there are standing rules that say things that have to do with finances of the county start in finance. So that we'd have to try and work through that if it wanted to go straight to the board.
All right. Okay. All right, well, we are going to take a 10-minute break, and we will come back to you, and we will talk about this a little bit more. All right, we are back. We are ready to go. I'll let my commissioners return to their spaces. All right, so we have a motion on the table, and the motion was to postpone no later than January 30. And I'm going to call in Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair Brevi. Before I make my procedural statement here, I just wanted to, I was remiss in not thanking the residents for their feedback today. I do appreciate that. Commissioner Antor mentioned that he loves public comment. I don't love the tedium of public comment, but I do love that people are coming and being engaged, and I do love hearing from people who have a stake in what we do here at this board. So I appreciate that people were willing to come and be engaged. And I'll explain what I'm going to do before I do it. So my intention, and I hope that the commissioners will support what I'm trying to do here. My hope is that we will now take this item up at the Board of Commissioners. We've deliberated it quite a bit in this committee. So what I am going to do is make a motion to withdraw, or I'm not going to make a motion. I'm going to withdraw my motion to postpone right now.
Okay, is there
I
support?
withdraw my support of the previous motion.
You're withdrawing your support. Okay, so now we are back to the original motion of adopting the 2023 plan for the zoo. Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. I move to postpone this measure indefinitely. That's my motion.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Green. Yes, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you. Just to speak to my motion to postpone indefinitely. That's to enable, as Commissioner Green brought up, the opportunity to have this deliberated at the full board level. Not necessarily this amendment, because as noted by council, this postponement indefinitely effectively, for lack of, ends the consideration or closes the file, as it was told, of this particular amendment. Clearly, I don't think there's sufficient support for the amendment as provided to us. I am inclined to believe that some iteration is doable, and the postponing this measure indefinitely allows for a future iteration to be considered by the full board after deliberation and discussion. So that is why I've postponed this measure indefinitely.
Yes, this would allow the full board to be engaged in this conversation. We've heard from all of you today, and we feel, it's best that it's a full board decision. Are there any questions or comments regarding this motion? Commissioner Hildenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I support the motion. I do encourage leadership of the board to not take this up before this committee again and to move at a full board level when we're ready to move forward, and to keep all the considerations in mind from the residents who live around the zoo, the zoo interests from a regional economic standpoint and a tourism attraction, and all the other interested stakeholders. And when they're all ready, and again, I don't think we'll ever be unanimous, but when we have majority support of the Board of Commissioners, let's put it on the agenda and move forward. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Commissioner McLeod.
Thank you, Chair. So I definitely support tabling or the motion that's currently on the floor. I believe that I agree with Commissioner Hildebrand that it's time to move it forward and let the rest of our colleagues weigh in as well. So I do appreciate the motion.
All right, thank you. Any other comments regarding this? Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate everybody's comments on wanting to do this. I'm going to vote against it. I think we should vote up and down, and that's just where I'm at. I think what's going to happen is it's going to remain the same, even at the full board level. It's going to be people weighing it. I think this is our job to move this thing today, with the thought that if it goes through, the full board's going to have another crack at it. So I just think it's time to vote on it, up and down. And I realize I'm in the minority, but that's just where I'm sticking.
Commissioner Kallman.
Thank you, Chair. I understand Commissioner Antor's perspective, and I really feel strongly that this ought to be considered now in a forum where all commissioners have the ability to deliberate on the topic, and it sounds like from all the conversation on this motion to table indefinitely that is the intent, and with that as the intent, I'll be supporting this, and add a comment. I feel like the zoo board has attempted to, as best they know how, to come up with a kind of compromise solution that balances all the competing interests, and I think that they'll continue to engage in this process. But I just want to put the point on it that I hope we don't take too long to get this engaged with the full board, because indeed, the zoo is a separate governmental entity, and they do have the full authority to move forward with the plan that was passed in 2015. I think that they will engage with this process and this delay in the process. But I just want to remind my colleagues and just urge that we move this expeditiously.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair Brevi, and I just wanted to further reiterate, Commissioner Antor, I share Commissioner Antor's sentiment that he'd like for us to to vote on this today, but what I've heard in comments is that this committee does not support a majority of the members of this committee does not support the plan that's before us today in its current form and in this current situation. My concern with that would be that now, I don't think that the zoo would, without further conversation, go forward with the 2015 plan, but they would have the ability, as Commissioner Kallman mentioned, to go forward with that plan. Were we to, I mean, they could do it without us acting at all, but I don't think anybody that's spoken is in favor of that and thinks that's the best path forward, regardless of where we fall on this issue. So that's the reason why I'd like for us to, further conversation. If we vote today, I do not think it will pass, and I think that it'll be dead before, and we'll have to start over. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I do appreciate your sentiment. I do appreciate Commissioner Antor's sentiment, Chair, but I just wanted to explain that from my perspective. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, we can take a vote now. So what we are voting on is postponing this indefinitely. And, all right. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Any abstentions? One. All right, the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you for all the time that you spent with us today. And, we appreciate you attending our meeting. And if you feel called to head out and enjoy the rest of your day, go for it. So that brings us to our item number 4 on the agenda from the Sheriff's Office. And it's a request to provide school resource officers for Kentwood Public Schools.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to enter into an agreement with Kentwood Public Schools to provide an additional school resource officer by adding one new county patrol officer position to appropriate $106,584 received from Kentwood Public Schools to the Sheriff's 2024 Special Project Fund budget and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreements. Summary. Kentwood Public Schools would like to contract with the Sheriff's Office to add an additional SRO. The SRO program is a collaborative effort between the school's community students and law enforcement in which a certified police officer is assigned to a specific school district. The goal of the SRO program is to build relationships and provide proactive law enforcement by working with educators, students, and parents to reduce crime, drug abuse, and violence in and around the school buildings and the school district. This position would be funded through a contracted agreement with Kentwood Public Schools, with the school paying 100% of the personnel expenditures, or $127,901 annually, and also $4,200 per year toward the cost of the vehicle used by the officer. An amount of $110,083, or 83.3% of the annual amount, will be received in FY 2024 from the school for 10 months as the contract commences on December 1st, 2023. The county will be paying for the purchase of one police cruiser at a cost of $73,110, which will be absorbed in the fiscal year 2024 Sheriff's General Fund budget. The applicable contract will be reviewed as to form by Assistant Corporate Counsel, and a new fleet number will need to be assigned by Fiscal Services. If funding is eliminated or decreased, the position and/or vehicle addition will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations. This item was approved by LHR at its November 14 meeting.
All right, thanks, Sal. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner McLeod, support by Commissioner Green. Questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I support this, but I had a question for the sheriff and
We
or
have
the
our
undersheriff.
Undersheriff Chuck DeWitt here to join us today.
Good morning. Good morning, Chuck. Just the question of procedure, and I should know this, but I don't, and I should have asked you probably outside this meeting, but if there's something going down in that area, what's the process for that officer at that school? I'm hoping that they would have a plan where they could go assist.
Yes, they can. So in all of our contracts, whether they're with a township or with a school or a community policing officer, there is a clause that allows for us to temporarily use those resources in a different community in an emergency purpose, knowing full well that it's reciprocated if in fact their community or their entity also had an emergency that needed additional assistance.
So the school then would have a contingency plan if that happens for somebody to fill in during that time generally? I mean, they probably have,
Yeah, for example, most schools have their own private security in addition to our school resource officers, and they would revert back.
Okay.
Of course, we're always monitoring, and if needed, we would bring in additional resources from outside that area, but the emergency would be what is taken care of at that moment in time.
perfect. I love it. Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. All right, next item, also from the Sheriff's Department, is a request to provide patrol deputies assigned to Gaines Township.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to enter into an agreement with Gaines Charter Township to provide additional road patrol services by adding 3 new county patrol officer positions to appropriate $287,778 received from Gaines Township to the Sheriff's 2024 Special Project Fund budget, and to authorize the board chair or designee to sign the agreements. Summary. Gaines Charter Township would like to contract with the Sheriff's Office to add 3 additional full-time M. Cole certified law enforcement officers to bolster the Road Patrol Division. Gaines Township has been experiencing substantial residential and commercial development growth, resulting in an increasing population and higher demand for public services. Kent County Sheriff's Office has observed a significant rise in calls for service and allocated time dedicated to Gaines Township over the past decade. The objective is to enhance the existing service level by an additional 12 hours per day, 7 days a week, to assist with high-demand calls for service within Gaines Township. These positions will be funded through a contracted agreement with Gaines Township, with Gaines paying 100% of the personnel expenditures, or $383,704 annually for the 3 officers. An amount of $287,778, or 75% of the annual amount, will be received in fiscal year 2024 from the township for 9 months, as the contract commences on January 1, 2024. The county will be paying for the purchase of 1 police cruiser at a cost of $73,110, which will be absorbed in the fiscal year 2024 Sheriff's General Fund budget. The applicable contract will be reviewed as due form by Assistant Corporate Counsel, and 2 new fleet numbers will need to be assigned to fiscal services. If funding is eliminated or decreased, the position and/or vehicle addition will be eliminated unless continuation funding is approved pursuant to fiscal policy on grants, contracts, and donations. This item was approved by LHR at its November 14 meeting.
All right, thank you, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Support. Moved by Commissioner Hildebrand, support by Commissioner Sparks. Questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Sparks.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to, as we go forward, we're seeing things come through from the Sheriff's Department. There's such a stress right now in that whole realm of law enforcement to attract and retain. We've got people that are retiring out. So as we move forward, I want to make sure that we have the additional supports needed for our Sheriff's Department. Just something for us to think about for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions? Commissioner Wooden.
It's okay, Chair Emily. So I just wanted to, certainly echo the previous sentiments and also just underpin my appreciation for the 2 requests that we've had today, both Kentwood Public Schools and Gaines Township. These are entities that are providing the funding for this expanded service. We are certainly underwriting oversight and maintenance of vehicle, but in terms of the added staffing costs, we are, these participating jurisdictions are contributing the vast majority, and that participation in this to increase our level of service but ensure it is fairly paid for is something I very much appreciate. So I just wanted to express my appreciation to both Kentwood Public Schools and Gaines Township for participating in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? I just wanted to say my appreciation as well as a representative of Gaines Township and Kentwood. Several of the schools are also in my district, so I appreciate the attention here and definitely addressing a need that we have in our community. The Sheriff's Department does a great job and are definitely welcomed in the schools too, so thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. So our next item on the agenda comes from Fiscal Services, and it's the notice of intent to issue municipal securities for 300 Monroe, 320 Ottawa, and the Fuller campus. And early on in our meeting this morning, several hours ago now, we've had the opportunity to reach out to our bond counsel and get some clarification. Originally, when I mentioned this early on in our meeting, I said we were going to strike out the language "without limitation," and we have gotten information back from our bond counsel and who did not approve or agree with that. And I don't know if Jeff wants to talk more about it, but if there's any questions. So this particular action request, how we are going to address it today is we are not striking out the "without limitation." So it'll be in its original form. Al, did you want to read the action request?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to purchase, acquire, and construct capital improvements and to publish a notice of intent to issue municipal securities not to exceed $70 million to finance improvement costs related to certain facilities located at 300 Monroe Avenue, 320 Ottawa Avenue, and the Kent County Fuller Campus, and allocate $8 million from strategic capital to the Capital Project Construction Fund for preliminary design. Summary. In 2015, Progressive A&E partnered with Kent County to perform a comprehensive assessment of space needs for 26 buildings across the county. Progressive AE re-engaged with Kent County in 2019 to understand what has changed and to define future priorities for Kent County in terms of space usage and optimization. This iteration concluded in 2023 with recommendations to accommodate the county's current and future growth needs. As a result of the updated space needs assessment, the county has determined it is in the best interest of county operations and community access to services to proceed with facility improvements, which includes but is not limited to the construction of a new administrative center on the Fuller campus, the renovation of 300 Monroe to support the county prosecutor's office and flexible space, the potential renovation of 320 Ottawa to support indigent defense services, and the acquisition and installation of related furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Due to the scope of these projects, the county intends to pay for all or part of these costs through the issuance of municipal securities. The county may reimburse itself for any preliminary costs advanced for the above projects. In accordance with PA 34 of 2001, the Board of Commissioners must authorize publishing a notice of intent to issue municipal securities in a newspaper of general circulation in the County of Kent prior to issuing any municipal securities.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wooden. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Oliver King. All right, questions or comments regarding this? Commissioner Antor.
Sorry, Chair, I was just wondering if you could go back and kind of explain why we went back to taking out the language that we originally pulled out. Now we're putting it back in without limitations. I guess, what was the reason behind that? And I apologize, you explained it and I just kind of missed it.
I think there was a concern about whether or not having that language in would limit what the board could do in the facility. And I think we've been able to come to an agreement that that isn't the case, and Jeff did check with bond counsel, and they believe that the wording is necessary to be in the resolution. So I think it was basically a misunderstanding that's been resolved.
And that's fine. I'm a little bit uncomfortable without, having no limitations, because it's like an open checkbook. I'm just wondering if it allows for people to game the system a little bit more, knowing that it's uncapped.
It's really the same as any other one you've ever done.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions? Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, the notice of intent to bond is the first step in a bonding process.
Correct.
This is, I don't want to completely reduce this, but this is in some ways a pledge to publicize that we intend to bond.
Yes.
And ultimately, the staff recommendation will have to be taken up by further actions, whether that be the final issuance of bond or an additional resolution accepting the staff recommendation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. I mean, look, ultimately, whatever options, the options presented to us by staff, the one that was recommended, or the others that were considered, all of them are going to require bonding. And we have to make a decision on this. So ultimately, proceeding with the next procedural step to publicize our intent to bond makes total sense, and why I'll be supporting it.
And could I just add that the reason we're anticipating that it will take a $60 million bond and $40 million in other sources, i.e. strategic capital, to cash flow the total project. So basically then what would happen is there will be nets that come out of that. So at the end of the 5-year process, then we plan to sell 82 Ionia. Conservatively, we estimate that will pump 10 million back in that would likely go back into strategic capital. Or if the market were such that you could refinance, then you might just, put that into the debt. And then also, if you look at, so 180 Ottawa potentially could become the home of the indigent defense, but that's money in, money out the same, because the state would pay for the rehab of that building. If we went, and if the project didn't go, that doesn't impact these numbers either way. So ultimately, it nets out at more like 77 million when all the money coming in and going out is accounted for. But to begin, you kind of need to plan for that 100 million in cash flow to make things flow. I'll also mention that it's very common, and this board has done that with the airport bonding you've done within the last couple years, that the notice of intent goes out at a higher level than what you expect to spend, just in case, because there's a whole process that goes from now, public notice and all that sort of thing, that you wouldn't want to have to do again in the middle of a project. Then the last point would just be that by doing the notice of intent, you can basically capture any expenditures that happen between now and roughly a year from now, when this project will come back to you for consideration. And there will be inputs in between, but I'm saying as far as a formal vote on the project, probably giving it or passing it on to the building authority and approving the bond is probably almost a year out from here, so.
All right, Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate something I've said before. I don't, I was tempted to not bring this up because I don't want to keep away from the intent to bond conversation. However, the action request here states that one of the uses of one of the facility improvements would include the renovation of 300 Monroe to support, among other things, county board space. I'd just like to say once again that I feel strongly that the county board should not be meeting in a space where the administration is not located. I think that insofar as we need some conference space for people to meet and utilize this space downtown, that there's value in that, but I think that from a relationship perspective with our administrative staff and the board, and for the peace of mind of our constituents, we should be deliberating and meeting in the same place where the administration is located. So I just wanted to share that piece. My understanding, folks have told me that will be something we can consider down the road, and it's not particularly relevant to the intent to bond. That language is not included in the actual resolution. However, I felt it was worth noting again today. So thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it is, I think one of the main reasons why we are doing this shift is to be more customer friendly. As we've seen in recent meetings, it's challenging for people to come to our meetings and find parking downtown. Fuller is a lot easier to access and would be a great location, to continue having our board meetings. So, and for the sake of being customer friendly, I think that is a very good move, and I appreciate you pointing that out. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Kallman.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to echo what Commissioner Wooden said about this being kind of a logistical step. I appreciate those comments because it's kind of an important aspect of this, but also to say thanks to all those, commissioners, administration, and third-party consultants that have been involved in space needs studies that have led to this logistical step. I just want to give publicly my appreciation for all of that work. I think the only thing that's taken longer than the zoo's planning process on parking is our space needs studies.
We're close.
So I just want to acknowledge that while this is just a logistical step, that there's lots of due diligence over many years that's gotten to this point. And also, as previous in the year, our bonding review subcommittee recommended, those process steps. I just want to express I'm happy to help in whatever way I can to kind of facilitate getting commissioners, when the actual bonding request comes up, the details that will be helpful to everyone to make the final decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Kallman. Yes, the space needs study has taken up a large portion of our 10 years on the board here, so I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. We are cruising through this. Our next item on the agenda comes to us from the Parks Department, and it's the Dwight Liddell Park Water Wheel Project CIP Budget Amendment.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate a $175,000 grant from the Right Place Revitalization and Placemaking Program, or RAP, 2.0 grant allocation to the Dwight Liddell Water Wheel and World War II Memorial Project in the 2024 CIP fund budget, and authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary. Parks Department obtained funding from the Right Place RAP 2.0 regional grant allocation for the Dwight Liddell Water Wheel and World War II Memorial Project, previously approved in the CIP fund budget. The project will address the water wheel and World War II Memorial area adjacent to the Comstock Park Library and West River Drive. The project will include bank improvements, replacement of the water wheel, and user enhancements to activate the area in a more pedestrian-friendly design. The Board of Commissioners approved the project as part of the 2023 CIP via Resolution 11-17-22-116. The original funding sources were $300,000 from county CIP funds and $200,000 from the Comstock Park Downtown Development Authority. Based on the final project design and bidding, the project cost is now estimated at $675,000, including contingency. The department applied for and received a $175,000 allocation from the Right Place RAP 2.0 grant to make up the remainder of the project cost. Corporate Counsel will review and approve the agreement as to form prior to signature.
Thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Green. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Wooden. Questions or comments? Commissioner Antor.
At the risk of getting stoned for bringing up another question, but it seems like at one point, way back a long time ago, before a lot of people were here, there was some sort of arrangement with the local businesses to take care of the maintenance on parking lots. It seems like the local businesses in there were picking up that cost maybe. I just don't remember where we're at on that.
Is this related to the current item?
Yeah, it's like who's paying for the snow removal at the park, I guess. Is it the businesses or is it the county?
Ben Swayze from the Parks Department.
This was a kind of I don't remember the context, but I remember there was an agreement with the Comstock Park Chamber of Commerce.
There's a couple of separate parking lots here at Dwight Liddell Park. There's the parking lot that serves the library. There's a parking lot that serves kind of deeper into the park, and then there's the parking lot that's right at the front of the park. Mm-hmm. We do have a 99-year lease agreement with the DDA, and they do all the snow removal. They do all of the eventual repairs. They are allowed to make improvements there, but they have to come back to the county for any improvements that they want to make.
Perfect. I knew there was something. 99 years, I don't have to worry about it. Thank you.
Perfect. All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Item number 8 on our agenda is from Fiscal Services, and it's the liquor tax substance abuse budget amendment.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate an additional $512,259 from the Michigan Department of Treasury to the 2023 substance abuse budget in the general fund for substance abuse programs provided by Lakeshore Regional Partners. Summary. The county receives a liquor tax distribution from the state annually as provided in PA 106 of 1985. State law requires that 50% of this distribution be distributed to the county's designated substance abuse coordinating agency for substance abuse programs. For 2023, the county planned for liquor tax receipts of $3,854,742, of which $1,927,371, or 50%, was appropriated for distribution to the county's designated substance abuse coordinating agency. The county has received $4,879,259, of which $2,439,630, again 50%, must be distributed to the county's designated substance abuse coordinating agency. Because of the unplanned liquor tax revenue, an additional appropriation of $512,259 is required for distribution to Lakeshore Regional Partners, the county's designated substance abuse coordinating agency.
All right, is there a motion for this item? Motion. Moved by Commissioner Sparks, is there support? Support by Commissioner Antor. Questions, comments, anything? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. That brings us to item number, I'm going down too far. Item number 9 from the Circuit Court, and it's fiscal year 2023 Milk Meal Grant Budget Amendment.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate an additional $80,479 from the Michigan Department of Education, MDE, to the FY 2023 Milk Meal Grant Budget in the Special Projects Fund, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the award. Summary. The United States Department of Agriculture, via the MDE, provides funding for nutritious breakfasts and lunches to eligible children residing in a detention center. The board appropriated $160,000 to the FY 2023 Milk Meal Grant Budget via Resolution 09-08-22-96. MDE has since awarded Kent County an additional $80,479 due to increased meal reimbursement costs and an increased number of children housed in detention in FY 2023, bringing the total award to $240,479. An additional appropriation of $80,479 is required. The grant term is October 1, 2022 to September 30, 2023.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Antor. Support? Support by Commissioner Hildebrand. All right, questions or comments? All right, Commissioner Coleman.
Sorry. I'm just wondering if the increased number of children housed in detention is the cause of that primarily raise the age?
Nicole Fumarolo from Circuit Court. Raise the age is certainly a part of it. Also, just increased staffing has allowed us to house more children at this time. So, just kind of a lot of things.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Our next item, number 10, is also from the Circuit Court, and it's the fiscal year 2024 Milk Meal Grant Budget Amendment.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate an additional $80,000 from the Michigan Department of Education to the FY 2024 Milk Meal Grant Budget in the Special Projects Fund, and to authorize the board chair or designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the award. Summary. The USDA, via the MDE, provides funding for nutritious breakfasts and lunches to eligible children residing in a detention center. The board appropriated $170,000 to the FY 2024 Milk Meal Grant Budget via Resolution 08-24-2382. MDE awarded Kent County an additional $80,479 for FY 2023, and the increased funding is expected to continue into FY 2024 due to increased meal reimbursement rates and an increased number of children housed in detention, bringing the total award to $250,000 for FY 2024. An additional appropriation of $80,000 is recommended. The grant term is October 1, 2023 to September 30, 2024.
All right, thanks, Sal. Is there a motion for this item? Was there a motion? Commissioner Antor is making the motion. Commissioner Hildebrand, support. Okay, perfect. Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Next item, number 11 from the Health Department, and also the best university ever, Calvin University. It's the Women Supporting Women program.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept and appropriate $57,198 to the 2024 Health Fund budget for the Calvin University Women Supporting Women Grant, and authorize the board chair or his designee to execute the grant agreement, approve extensions, amendments, and increases to the grant appropriation not to exceed 15% of the original award. Summary: the Health Department has received $81,412 in funding from Calvin University for the Women Supporting Women program. That's WSW. The grant period is October 1, 2023 through June 30, 2025. However, only the funding for October 1, 2023 through September 30, 2024, which is $57,198, is being appropriated. The remaining $24,214 will be included in the 2025 Health Fund budget. The Health Department will work to integrate the WSW program into the Maternal Infant Health Program to provide support and education to women who are pregnant or have recently given birth and are more likely to have a chronic disease or mental health concerns. Educational sessions will be held in geographically convenient sites with 8 to 10 women in each session. The Health Department began the WSW program in fiscal year 2023 with a small pilot group which included 39 women in 6 groups who received 351 hours of support and healthcare education. Preliminary information about the WSW pilot group indicates program participants were more proactive about family planning and their baby's health care compared to those not involved in the WSW program. The Health Department anticipates serving 80 to 100 women in groups of 10 to 12 women in fiscal year 2024. The grant covers the costs of the Health Department staff who will facilitate the work, supplies, translation, transportation costs for group sessions, and indirect costs. The grant term is October 1, 2023 through June 30, 2025.
All right, thanks, Sal. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Sparks, support by Commissioner Antor. All right, questions or comments regarding this particular item? Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to applaud Calvin for stepping up, and I assume the pilot was successful, given that they're looking to continue the program and add funding. I'm just curious about the allocation, why is 2/3 of the money in the first year and 1/3 in the second year? And then how is this marketed? The recently given birth or more likely to have chronic disease or mental health concerns? How is this targeted?
Sure. I'll answer the second question, and then I'll have Gail answer the first question. The second question, how it's marketed, is all of the individuals that participated in Women Supporting Women and who will participate are also enrolled in our maternal infant health program. So their home visitor, when the home visitor recognizes that there's particularly concern about isolation or anxiety, depression, they also encourage them to enroll in the Women Supporting Women. And it is the home visitor that facilitates the group meeting. So they've already got a relationship built, and so we've seen tremendous results in these women coming together with other women who are at the same stage of life and feeling supported in that environment.
And for the first question, Calvin, we're a subcontractor for Calvin. They actually received a grant that's 18 months long, so that's the reason why that grant is 18 months for us. And because our fiscal year runs, it starts on the fiscal year, we only budget for that fiscal year, and then the rest of it will follow in next year's budget. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. Now, our next item listed on the agenda is item 12, but we, before the meeting, determined that we are going to take that up at another time. So item number 13 is from Fiscal Services, and it's fiscal year 2023 Strategic Capital CIP Project Budget Amendment.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate up to $4 million to the FY 2023 Strategic Capital Project in the Capital Improvement Program Fund. Summary. The Strategic Capital CIP project was established in 2015 to set aside funding for future capital needs and to reduce the size of debt associated with large capital projects. Any use of the strategic capital funding must be appropriated by the board before it can be spent. Funding is available in the FY 2023 general fund budget due to budget lapse It is recommended that up to $4 million be appropriated to the FY 2023 Strategic Capital Project in the CIP fund from the FY 2023 General Fund budget. The balance of the Strategic Capital CIP as of September 30, 2023 is $24.1 million.
Thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Coleman, support by Commissioner Antor. Questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes. Yes. All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. All right, our next item, number 14, comes from the Administrator's Office, and it's to approve an amendment to the Grand Rapids, Kent County Convention and Arena Authority Operating Agreement.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve and authorize the execution of a second amendment to the Grand Rapids Kent County Convention Arena Authority, CAA, agreement between Kent County and the City of Grand Rapids. Summary. Kent County and the City of Grand Rapids established the Grand Rapids Kent County Convention Arena Authority and entered into the CAA operating agreement on March 29 of 2000. The Board of Commissioners authorized the purchase agreement for the CAA to purchase real property for the development of an outdoor amphitheater per Resolution 3/24/2244. The pre-closing requirements have been met. Kent County and the City of Grand Rapids have agreed to amend the agreement as it relates to the inclusion of the Acrisure Amphitheater by the City and County. The proposed amendment has been reviewed as to form by Corporate Counsel.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Wood. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Hildenbrand. We do have Kara Wood here and also Rick Wynn. Kara is the Director of Grand Action 2.0, and Rick is the CAA Chair. And they have some information for us on these exciting projects.
Thank you, Chair Brevi, and good morning, good afternoon, County Commissioners. Over the last 25 years, Grand Action has worked to develop public-private partnerships here in Kent County that have delivered operationally sustainable and successful projects. Those include the DeVos Place, Van Andel Arena, and the Downtown Market. These have enhanced the vibrancy of a growing region, and I can't imagine where we would be without those assets today. These projects have been based on a foundation of generations of leaders who have put an immense amount of work and time and treasure into making these projects exceptional contributors to the success of this county. Today, Grand Action 2.0 is eager to build on that momentum and develop two of the catalyst projects for which the 2017 CSL Destination Asset Study has called out in terms of the need for investment in the next 10 years. So these two projects that you're hearing about today are part of the Transformational 12, as highlighted by the Right Place, and will propel our region forward. Based upon an economic impact analysis that we conducted, the amphitheater and the soccer stadium projects that we are planning are expected to add over $1 billion in net new economic impact and more than 1,200 construction and operational jobs to Kent County over the next 30 years. This will result in annual wage earnings of over $15 million and almost $500,000 to these venues each year. These projects have also very public benefits that Andy mentioned earlier this morning that will be serving as a catalyst for new commercial housing developments as well. These actions considered by your committee this morning are important to allow Grand Action to continue the work necessary on these public-private partnerships, to execute on the amphitheater, and to continue to plan, organize, and execute a fundraising strategy to obtain funds from private and other sources for these projects and a potential soccer stadium. So the support from the county is important today to ensure that these public-private partnerships have the support necessary to continue the further planning and fundraising efforts of Grand Action 2.0. So with that, I'll let Rick provide comment.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Do we get more than 3 minutes now? No. I want to reiterate what Kara has mentioned. Thank you for having us here. I'm president of AHC Hospitality. I also chair the Convention Arena Authority as your appointee, so thank you very much. I also chair the Downtown Development Authority. Both of those entities work as a major mission to encourage economic development within the region, create jobs, provide facilities for entertainment enjoyment and benefits of their residents. Today, our community is vibrant because of a foundation built on public-private partnerships, a collaborative spirit, and the CAA has decades of success in enriching the quality of life of residents and attracting visitors to boost our economy. Our region's sustained growth has positioned us to comfortably and confidently take the next logical step to invest in West Michigan's future, and the items before you today do just that. So as proven by the successful arena and convention center, we're confident and have expertise and experience to successfully operate these entertainment and sports facilities. The community assets that we're working on to support will create more than, as Kara said, $1 billion in net new economic impact to Kent County. So with that, we hope you support these resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you both, and thank you both for sticking through the last 4 hours to present this. So
Very interesting and our pleasure.
we appreciate your patience. Are there any questions or comments regarding this? Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Just real quickly, I want to stay consistent on this. I know there's great philanthropic support to keep everything downtown, but I just think we could have done this for a fraction of the cost, moving it outside, and particularly rodeo grounds of Sparta, which you guys all visited, and it's an incredible site, but I would have liked to see this, at some point, moving something like this outside of the Grand Rapids area for a change. But I appreciate it, and I think it's going to be a real good project, and I wish you the best of luck, but I'd still like to see something at some point move outside of Grand Rapids. Thank you.
All right, other questions or comments? Commissioner Coleman.
Just to make sure I'm tracking, the one we're voting on now is just the amendment to the operating agreement so that the amphitheater can operate under the CAA. Is that correct?
Yes, and it brings the county in as a full partner again.
Okay.
The amphitheater, correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments on the the operating agreement? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no.
No.
All right, motion passes. Our next item, number 15, is also from the admin office, and it's approved the amphitheater funding to the Grand Rapids Kent County Convention Arena Authority.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to authorize a $15 million contribution from the Lodging Excise Tax Fund to the Grand Rapids Kent County Convention and Arena Authority, CAA, over 3 years for use for the development of the amphitheater and to appropriate $5 million to the 2024 Lodging Excise Tax Fund budget. Summary. Kent County and the City of Grand Rapids established the CAA and entered into a CAA operating agreement on March 29, 2000. The CAA was created by the city and the county for the purpose, in part, of the development and operation of certain entertainment facilities, including the public outdoor amphitheater. Kent County wishes to provide $15 million in financial support for the development funding and construction of the amphitheater to encourage and foster economic development through increased tourism and economic activity. Kent County will allocate the $15 million over a 3-year period in equal payments of $5 million beginning in fiscal year '24 and ending in fiscal year '26.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Wooden. Any questions or comments regarding this item? Commissioner Hildenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. Just way of background, can somebody let us know what the annual revenue is on the Lodging Excise Tax Fund, just to put it in perspective? And then what are the allocations annually of that fund? Would be helpful. Thank you.
Great. We have Jeff Dode from Fiscal Services that can provide that information for us.
Good morning.
Afternoon.
Let me pull my fund statement. So back in 2019, the actual transient tax we collected was 11.4 million. 2020 went down to 5.1, so we had a big drop with COVID, of course. Since then, we've had a recovery, 8.9 million. 22, we had 12.5, just under. 23 was a shortened year for 9 months, so 9.6. This year, we're expecting 14.5 million. And then some of the uses are we pay Experience GR a percentage of that. We support Art Prize, and we support the festival out of that, and we have a little bit of administrative costs. And then in addition, the bond payment, which is till 2030. So,
just a quick follow-up. Is there a running balance generally every year?
Correct. Yeah, we try to keep a fund balance in there equal to 1 year's bond payment.
Which is, what's 1 year bond payment?
It goes up in 24. We find it 8.5 million. And then it goes up about 300,000 or so a year until it's paid off.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Sparks?
I'm glad to support this because I feel that the CAA is a very integral part of what we do and supporting our region locally. So I'm very excited to support this and partner with them.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Coleman?
Thank you, Chair. I do think this and the subsequent resolution are ones that should be deliberated by the full board. So I'm definitely supporting both today, moving them out of this committee. The contribution here, I will just express my concern publicly in regards to, so this contribution, like, I think makes sense to me. I think it is, fits within kind of current lodging excise tax, revenues, et cetera. And yet my concern is, a couple years ago when we were first getting into this, it was all the county has to do is just approve, some logistical stuff so that the land can be used for this purpose. And then Grand Rapids is going to do, all of the, as far as governmental things, and private philanthropy will step in, as well. Now, Kent County is doing 15 million over 3 years. I'm just a little concerned. So while this in and of itself seems to make sense to me, I'm a little concerned this is a boiling the frog type of situation where we'll end up finding ourselves, another couple years down the road with, the only way to make this happen is if Kent County raises taxes, or if Kent County, kicks in another X million dollars. So I just want to express that's my hesitation overall, is I don't want to be in a situation where, the Kent County, taxpayer as a whole becomes the lender of last resort here to make this project a reality, when I have a significant number of constituents who don't care one way or another whether there's, more things in Grand Rapids, because they never come to Grand Rapids. And so that's just the reality I'm considering.
There's a couple of things I did want to cover. Yep, I did want to cover briefly. One is that by investing the $5 million a year, we'll be basically waiting another 3 years to get our $10 million back that the county loaned during the Great Recession and during the pandemic. In any event, the due date on that would be 2031, because that's when the debt is paid off for the DeVos place. So we'll be waiting 3 years to get that money back. The other thing I'll say is I just wanted to acknowledge that, yes, 2 years ago, the program was the county wasn't a full partner in the amphitheater piece. And really, there were two main reasons. One was financial, is the project going to work from a cash flow kind of perspective, and we are convinced that it certainly is. I think the second thing had to do with some environmental concerns that we've been able to work out since that time as well. And so that was primarily the difference, I think.
All right, Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. And, I'll echo some of the sentiments that I myself am more leery than others when it comes to taxpayer support of amenities like this. But certainly see opportunities where they are appropriate. And as I understand it, this $15 million that we are pledging, are they not, if not the last dollars required to fill the gap for the amphitheater, they are close to the last dollars. Is that correct? In terms of your capital costs based on the more detailed designs that have been developed and the capital stack you've accumulated, what gap is remaining?
So the remaining gap are some state funds that have not yet been approved. The application's been filed, and the approval will come hopefully sometime early next year. But yes, essentially, the county dollars now are putting us at the 80% mark, and then the remainder is yet to be approved, but have been applied for.
Okay. And, ultimately, these are dollars that have to be spent on practices like this. And as I read the resolution allowing it, while it is our plan to spend these $15 over, or $15 million in lodging excise tax revenue over a current period of time, all we're committing to is a schedule mutually agreed upon in writing by the county administrator, controller, and the board chair of the CAA. Is it possible to have in that agreement some ability to revisit the schedule in that payment should an unexpected occurrence in lodging excise tax capture should we experience another pandemic that ends up with a huge reduction in lodging excise tax revenue? As I read it, the potential to have some degree of emergency leeway is provided for in this resolution.
Right. I would agree.
Ultimately, I think, given the limitations we can use these dollars for, how close the amphitheater is to its success, I think that this is one of those instances where it makes appropriate sense to pledge this support so we can ensure that this potentially transformational project can occur. And I very much am, we've supported its process in the past, and I think it's appropriate for us to ensure that this vision becomes a reality. Thank you.
The one thing I missed that I really wanted to cover too, when we talked about this 2 years ago, the conversation was about investing $5 to $10 million in either county general fund or strategic capital fund. Instead, the conversation now is using the hotel motel tax, which is certainly something that's for this kind of purpose.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I see this as a very transformational project, and just as the arena and the DeVos Place were both huge projects for our community that bring tourism in all the time, I think this will be a wonderful thing to add to our portfolio. Definitely show people in our community and also visitors what Kent County and Grand Rapids are all about. So I am looking forward to supporting this. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. All right, our next item on the agenda here is the from the administrator's office is support it's to support the memorandum of understanding relating to a public soccer stadium. And at your desk there was a update in some of the wording of it. And it's under the funding of the soccer stadium on the resolution. It says the city and county understand and agree that the stadium will not be funded using any general fund dollars to the county. So this is regarding the soccer stadium. This allows, this memo of understanding kind of is the first step of many down the road as they explore the option of adding that again to our portfolio. So, do you want to read the motion?
Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to authorize a resolution of support for Kent County and the City of Grand Rapids to enter into a memorandum of understanding related to public soccer stadium. Summary, Kent County and the City of Grand Rapids established a Grand Rapids-Kent County Convention Arena Authority. We've established that. The CAA Articles of Organization require approval by the Kent County Board of Commissioners and the City of Grand Rapids Commission to enter into agreements, obligations, or commitments for a period longer than 5 years. CAA desires to work with Grand Action 2.0 with the city, county, and others towards development, funding, and construction of a public soccer stadium. The city and county wish to express their support of the efforts by the CAA and GA 2.0 to develop, fund, and construct a public soccer stadium and are willing to consider amending the CAA operating agreement to authorize the development, funding, and construction. Corporate Counsel will review and approve as to form.
All right, thanks, Sal. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Hildenbrand. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Merchant. All right. Any questions or comments regarding this? Commissioner Hildenbrand.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, I appreciate the language that was added. These are transformational projects for not just the city, but the county and the region in general. But I do want to just make a point about taxes in general. I have a lot of reservations in general tax dollars supporting these kinds of projects. We have great philanthropy in this community, great donors. We have a lot of people involved in making these things happen. But just, the area I represent in Lowell and Ada and part of Cascade, I just want, to be public about the fact that I have a lot of reservations with using tax dollars or trying to generate new tax revenue to support these kind of projects, but fully support them moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Chair. I really want to echo what Commissioner Hildebrand mentioned, basically ditto on everything that Commissioner Hildebrand just said. I also wanted to say that this amendment language or new language that's been put before us today, I really appreciate it. As I've been having conversations with folks on this issue in particular, there was some concern from myself and other commissioners that I think Commissioner Coleman mentioned the process leading up to this, that we were we were told we would not be investing county dollars into the amphitheater project, and then of course we've come back and had to do that. So I'm appreciative that this language, at least pertaining to general fund dollars, with an agreement between the city and the county, confirms that, and I think that's very helpful for my peace of mind. So I appreciate that, and I do support these projects, and I hope we can get them completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. That brings us to our final action request on the agenda, number 17, from Fiscal Services, and it's the 2023 Lodging Excise Tax Budget Amendment.
Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appropriate an additional $189,432 to the 2023 Lodging Excise Tax Fund budget. Summary: the county levies a lodging tax in the amount of 5% on hotel motel facilities in Kent County as provided in PA 263 of 1974. Per the agreement with Experience Grand Rapids, the county will distribute 18% of 2023 lodging tax revenue to Experience Grand Rapids. For 2023, the county budget estimated lodging tax receipts of $8,500,000 and appropriated $1,779,700 for distribution to Experience Grand Rapids. At this time, the 2023 lodging tax receipts are estimated to generate $10,939,622, with $1,969,132 to be distributed to Experience Grand Rapids. Because of the increased lodging tax revenue, an additional appropriation of $189,432 is required for distribution to Experience Grand Rapids.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner McLeod, support by Commissioner Antor. All right, any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion passes. All right, our next item is miscellaneous. Is there any Commissioner miscellaneous? Yes, Commissioner Green.
I'll be extremely brief. I just want to say there were a lot of really key issues that we talked about today. Thanks to the committee for their work. Thank you, Chair, for your work. And I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving.
All right, happy Thanksgiving. Anyone else? All right, our next meeting will be on December 5 at 8:30 a.m. We'll see you then.